fueling intra-party rivalry. The race to fill the seat of retiring Senator Ben Cardin will be an uphill climb for Hogan, despite his high approval ratings during his tenure as governor. Maryland's incumbent political landscape remains robustly Democrat, and its last elected Republican senator was back in 1980. Hogan's candidacy, considered a veer from conventional Republican positions, could shake up not just the Maryland race, but the overall landscape of U.S. national politics. In recent political news, following the submission of arguably the most conservative, restrictive immigration and border security bill in recent history by the Democratic Party, Republicans have reportedly rejected the proposal, under the leadership of 2024's potential GOP presidential nominee, Donald Trump. Commenting on his Truth Social platform, Trump labeled the legislation as an act that only a fool or a radical left Democrat would vote for. Republicans subsequently blocked the bill in a procedural vote in the Senate. This move leaves the possible pathway to immigration reform almost completely obstructed, causing confusion within the Democrats' ranks. This experience reminds the Democrats that cooperating with the GOP's harsh policies in the name of compromise in today's political landscape can turn out to be a futile attempt. Despite being against the values initially proposed by President Joe Biden on his first day in office, Biden is advocating for a bill that could allow any president to completely shut down the southern border crossing if daily crossings exceed certain figures. Additionally, troubling aspects of the bill include limiting access to asylum, funding border barrier construction, and omitting the future status of approximately 580,000 active DACA recipients. As proof of the border security's functionality, seizures of fentanyl significantly increased in 2022, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, despite Republicans' repeated warnings of an immigrant invasion. Many feel that if Democrats want to succeed in 2024 and afterwards, it would serve the party well to adhere to its core values and ethics, rather than adopting tactics from the GOP playbook that undermine the political message it stands for. The Democratic Party could serve the American voters best by staunchly advocating for policies reflecting the country's rich and diverse immigrant history and the American dream. We've got breaking news out of Washington. Special Counsel Robert Hur's report regarding President Joe Biden's handling of classified information has reignited controversy. The report, though critics call it a harsh assessment, maintains that a jury might see Biden as an elderly man with a poor memory. Now we have Greg Spear with us. Greg, what are the key points in Hur's report?
Thank you, Ruth. The report landed on Attorney General Merrick Garland's desk on Monday, and it immediately sparked a quandary over how to handle its characterizations, which the White House deems false and excessive. Garland, along with other top Justice Department officials, could have tried to remove these characterizations. But, by doing so, he'd have to notify Congress of the information removed. The Justice Department suggests that these details would probably become public eventually, causing even more controversy.
That sounds like quite the predicament, Greg. Now, what about the audio recordings from the president's interview last October?
Yes, Ruth. The closing of the investigation means there will soon be decisions to make about audio footage from the president's interviews, including the one carried out last October with her. The report has already spurred attacks on President Biden about his age, which is seen as one of his main challenges ahead of a potential rematch with former President Donald Trump.
And what has the White House said about the criticisms, Greg?
Well, Ruth, Biden's lawyers and former Attorney General Eric Holder have accused her of violating Justice Department rules that typically restrict releasing negative information if the subject isn't being charged. However, some officials argue that Hur's in-depth explanation for not charging Biden falls within the guidelines for special counsels. Even Ty Cobb, a former White House attorney for Trump, admits the reasons Hur cited for not charging Biden are valid but was surprised at the level of detail disclosed.
And are we likely to hear these transcripts from the investigation?
That's a good question, Ruth. White House counsel spokesperson Ian Sams showed a willingness to release the transcripts during Friday's briefing, as long as classified information is not compromised. Interestingly, the president also refrained from asserting privilege over the report.
Thanks for that comprehensive report, Greg. It seems like we're in for another juggling act between accountability, transparency, and privacy in the political arena. Let's see how this unfolds in the coming days. In a recent controversial development, leading Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has made false claims regarding his and President Joe Biden's cooperation with federal authorities over retaining classified documents post their tenure. Trump, in his speech to the National Rifle Association, alleged he had cooperated more with federal authorities than Biden. However, facts tell a different story. There's no valid argument for Trump's claim of having cooperated far more than Biden. Biden has cooperated extensively with his federal investigation, highlights the special counsel Robert Hur, who conducted the probe. Meanwhile, Trump is currently facing charges of conspiracy, among other obstruction-related allegations, for his alleged attempts to impede the investigation into his conduct. Moreover, Trump had initially neglected to comply with National Archives and Records Administration's requests to return certain documents, and failed to return all documents despite a grand jury subpoena. Hur notably writes, Trump refused to return the documents for many months, but he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it. Biden's cooperation, on the other hand, has been abundant. He turned in classified documents willingly, allowed authorities to inspect several locations, participated in an extensive interview, and fulfilled written queries, asserts Hur. Trump's claim that Biden fought them all the way lacks substance. Biden self-reportedly discovered classified materials in his office and notified authorities, sparking an investigation. He further consented for a thorough investigation of his House, office, and Senate papers at the University of Delaware. Clearly, Trump's level of cooperation doesn't measure up to Biden's, even disregarding special counsel Jack Smith's allegations of criminal obstruction leveled against Trump. His handling of official documents, according to the Presidential Records Act, has been questionable, and he's currently facing allegations of obstruction and conspiratorial behavior, following a grand jury subpoena. While Trump's allegations remain allegations pending court validation, it's imperative to underline that no similar charges have been made against Biden. The disparity between the two leaders and their approach to due process and transparency is evident. A key system of global ocean currents, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, AMOC, appears increasingly at risk for collapse, according to a new report published in Science Advances. The AMOC, including the Gulf Stream, functions as a global conveyor belt, transferring warm, tropical water north before it cools, sinks, and flows back south. In maintaining the balance of heat and nutrients worldwide, it significantly impacts regional climates, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere. Scientists' long-held concerns about the AMOC's stability have heightened as climate change heats, and thereby disrupts oceans, melting ice, and thereby disrupting heat and salt balances that determine the current's power. A breakthrough from this recent study reveals an early warning signal for this potential collapse. Using an extraordinarily sophisticated and costly computing system, scientists ran climate models over 3 months to mimic a gradual rise in freshwater to the AMOC. The results? An unsettling, detectable weakening of the AMOC until it abruptly collapsed. While the study doesn't provide specific timelines for such a collapse, the implications are alarming. Should the AMOC collapse, there could be a drastic shift in temperatures across regions, up to 30 degrees Celsius over a century in parts of Europe, as well as serious disruption to ecosystems. Overall global warming could increase, with regions like the Amazon facing a potential flip of its wet and dry seasons. Sea levels could surge by a meter, further heightening worldwide climate concerns. It's crucial to note, though, that while the study is a significant step forward, there are still many uncertainties. Bigger and more nuanced models are needed. Research so far has not considered increasing levels of planet heating pollution, and despite the sophisticated model used for the study, its relatively low resolution may limit its scope. However, this report drives home the seriousness and urgency of the situation. A collapse of AMOC would have drastic and far-reaching effects on the global climate, And as marine and atmospheric researcher, Renee Van Westen warns, we ignore this risk at our peril. It's been a tumultuous week for President Joe Biden, who is grappling with a rather disparaging report conducted by special counsel Robert Hur. While the paper's 350 pages concluded that President Biden would not face charges for retaining and disclosing classified information post-vice presidency, the report took a notably harsh tone towards the president. It drew attention to the president's forgetfulness and suggested a decline in his cognitive functions due to his advancing age. This critique provoked a vehement response from President Biden, particularly when the report cited Biden's inability to recall the precise years of his son, Beau's life and death. How the hell dare he raise that? Biden passionately retorted at a White House press conference. While Democrats have rallied in opposing this analysis, suggesting bias from the Republican-tied Hur, the language has added fuel to a narrative that has already been driven by Republicans, that President Biden's age may be a hindrance to his competency as leader. This view seems to be infecting the public's opinion, with a CNN poll stating that only 25% of voters believe Biden is mentally stalwart enough to effectively serve as president. This image doubles as a counterpoint to President Biden's significant accomplishments. Despite successes in legislation and global leadership, voters appear unable to view him outside the lens of age and fragility. Meanwhile, Trump remains his probable opponent for the upcoming elections. Trump's own record is fraught with legal and ethical complications, yet is seen as more energetic. The president's recent misidentification of Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as the president of Mexico at a press conference doesn't help his cause either. Biden's claim of responsibility for his staff's actions and contradictions of Hur's report have only stirred the waters further, likely giving House Republicans more ammunition for investigations. The stakes and the tension are palpably rising, and Team Biden will look to rally in the face of these formidable odds. In our main story today, the trauma of a violent shooting at a Lunar New Year's Eve party in Monterey Park, California, continues to reverberate within the Asian community. The harrowing incident, which claimed 11 lives, unfolded in January of 2023, when a gunman opened fire at the majority Asian community's celebration at Star Ballroom Dance Studio. Sue Wong, a survivor who lost a dear friend in the shooting, shares the struggle of overcoming trauma and grief, a process exacerbated by cultural discord and language barriers in mental health care. Initially reticent to seek professional help, her journey led her to a Cantonese-speaking therapist who has disregarded probing questions and employed new methods for treatment. Wong's experience illuminates the vital importance of language and cultural understanding in mental health counseling. Survivors have united around Pastor Eric Chen, a pillar of strength in the aftermath. He has gone the extra mile to provide comfort and guidance to victims, helping them navigate time-sensitive responsibilities and overcome linguistic challenges. The Star Ballroom, once brimming with joyous melodies and the vibrancy of dance, was closed indefinitely, leaving locals without their beloved gathering spot. Resilient survivors, like Wong and Lloyd Gok, are finding strength in unity, attending support groups and openly sharing their experiences to combat the stigmatization of mental health in Asian communities. It is necessary to challenge cultural stereotypes around mental health care, particularly within the Asian community in Monterey Park. Notwithstanding their significant population in the area, Asian Americans were shown to be among the least likely to seek mental health treatment, according to a 2021 national survey on drug use and health. Factors such as cultural stigma and lack of bilingual healthcare providers contribute to low utilization. As part of their healing journey, survivors and the larger community in Monterey Park have reintroduced dance, which once served as a cornerstone of their social fabric, through workshops and gatherings. The road to recovery is long. The survivors remain firm in their resilience, proving that together they can face the aftershocks of trauma head-on. In other news today, in a developing story from South Korea, President Yoon Suk-yeol is facing a political storm with his wife, Kim Keon-hee, at the center of it. The controversy primarily revolves around a $2,200 Christian Dior bag Kim is accused of accepting as a gift, an allegation that she has yet to publicly address. The incident has sparked criticism and a nationwide call for an explanation, with assertions that the First Lady has used her position for personal gain. President Yoon, however, has dismissed these accusations as a political stunt. Kim is not a stranger to controversy. She has previously apologized for resume padding, whilst also facing allegations related to academic plagiarism and stock manipulation. Despite the presidential office denying allegations of stock manipulation, the murky concerns around Kim refuse to dissipate. This mounting crisis poses a significant problem for President Yoon, especially on the eve of a closely contested parliamentary election in April. A defeat in these elections could lead to political deadlock for the remainder of his term, greatly impeding his governance. The scandal has also seen his approval rates plummet to a 9-month low of 29%. Public dissatisfaction around the economy, perceived lack of communication, and the ongoing scandal with the First Lady being cited as primary reasons. Indeed, the ramifications of this scandal are starting to show, with The Voice of Seoul, a left-leaning YouTube channel known for its criticisms of Yoon's conservative government, unveiling footage of the gift incident. The channel alleges that it recorded the meeting with a hidden camera, raising further concerns around the extent to which privacy was compromised, in what seems like a relentless political drama. In the midst of this controversy, it is important to consider the unique position that Kim Keon-hee occupies as South Korea's First Lady. Unlike predecessors, Kim had a successful career in organizing art exhibitions before she married President Yoon. Her high profile and her frequent involvement in various facets of Korean society, ranging from culture promotion to fashion, notably distinguish her. However, these controversies, coupled with the impending elections, put President Yoon's administration in a precarious situation that warrants further observation. Stay tuned. For Soundly Human, this is Ruth Sterling. In the world of aviation, concerns about safety have been heightened following a series of incidents at the start of this year. Among these has been a runway collision at Tokyo's Haneda Airport and a mid-air door plug blowout in an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9. Additional fatal accidents involving regional and business aircraft have also occurred. Manufacturer Boeing has been under scrutiny after it was revealed the door blowout was tied to manufacturing issues, leading some travelers to consciously steer clear of booking flights on MAX 9 aircraft. Despite these incidents, aviation safety expert Jeffrey Thomas urges against panic. Thomas reinforced that flying remains the safest mode of transportation, and aircraft manufacturers continually improve safety measures. He added that the 737 model still holds a superior safety record than the 747, which is generally trusted widely. The Safe to Fly list, as published by Airline Ratings, includes Boeing 787 and 777-300ER, and Airbus A220, A320neo, A380. Top-ranking airlines for safety include Air New Zealand, Qantas, Virgin Australia, Etihad Airways, Qatar Airways, Emirates, All Nippon Airways, Finnair, and Cathay Pacific. These are based on their exemplary safety records and rigorous procedural standards. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and National Transportation Safety Board are currently investigating the Boeing MAX 9 incident, indicating a proactive response from regulatory bodies. And while 5 lives were tragically lost in the Tokyo collision, changes have already been implemented in air traffic control procedures to enhance prevention and improve safety. IATA's latest safety report reveals there were 39 commercial aviation accidents, with 158 onboard fatalities in 2022, equating to 1 accident per 0.83 million flights. The aviation industry's safety performance has improved by 48% in the past decade, informed by data and emerging trends. A yet-to-be-published study from Arnold Barnett, a Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor, finds the worldwide death risk per boarding between 2018 and 2022 equates to roughly 1 in 13.4 million. This demonstrates a stark contrast and significant advancement since the 1968 to 1977 period, where the risk was 1 death for every 350,000 boardings. While aviation safety has certainly improved, disparities between regions remain, and more progress needs to be made, especially in developing areas of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Nonetheless, for passengers boarding in countries with the safest records, the death risk drops to around 1 in 80 million. In conclusion, while the risk in aviation is not non-existent, experts resonate a sentiment of reassurance, emphasizing the remote probability of being involved in a plane accident. As per Professor Arnold Barnett's analogy, worrying about flying for the risk of death is similar to refusing to go into the supermarket because the ceiling could collapse. While efforts should press on for safety improvement, trends and data suggest the risk of disaster in commercial aviation is, statistically speaking, nearing the impossible.
Soundly Human News returns in 60 seconds. Soundly Human's 24/7 news coverage returns right now.
In a tragic development, the bodies of 5 individuals, believed to be an entire family, were found in a burned-out home near Philadelphia, authorities stated on Friday. Officials also suspect the presence of the remains of Con Le, a 43-year-old who supposedly opened fire inside the home earlier this week. Lee's mother identified him as the shooter, who possibly initiated the distressing sequence of gunfire and subsequent fire in the dwelling. The victims are assumed to be Le, his brother Suing Le, Suing's wife Brittany, and their children Na Kayla, Natalia, and Xavier. The latter 3 aged 13, 17, and 10 respectively. The Delaware County District Attorney, DA, Jack Stolzheimer, made this announcement during a news conference. The DA clarified that the criminal investigation might close if the examination of remains found with a firearm confirms them as Lee's. The assumption is that he may have caused at least 1 fatality in the house, possibly all. Officials will use DNA and dental records to verify the identity of each set of remains. The cause and manner of death will also be determined. Following this, the burned property will be given to the city for demolition. Reports suggest that Con Le had a dispute with his 13-year-old niece, threatening to fetch a gun. An emergency call was placed after 3 adults, including him, and his niece left the house. Responding officers then confronted gunfire, presumably from inside the dwelling. 2 officers were injured. Officer David Sciazza was released from the hospital after receiving treatment for a gunshot wound to his leg. Officer John Meehan was expected to be released soon after a lengthy surgical procedure for a gunshot wound to his left arm. Both are experienced officers, serving their departments for 22 years each. Amidst this, the devastating fire erupted, consuming the house. The neighborhood residents were evacuated, and the situation was brought marginally under control. Authorities are now tasked with determining the origin and cause of the fire, as well as clarifying reports of whether or not an 11-year-old girl had been shot. This marks a dark chapter in the family's stay at the home, who had been residing there for over 5 years. Grief counseling is being arranged for affected students and staff by the William Penn School District, recognizing the daunting task of grappling with such a calamity. Expressing solidarity, the statement reiterated that it is a time for mutual support in the face of an incident that defies comprehension. Updates will follow as more information becomes available. In a landmark decision, a jury has awarded renowned climate scientist Michael Mann over $1 million. The payout is linked to a defamation case that Mann brought against Rand Simberg, a former scholar for the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and Mark Stein, a TV and radio personality, who had ridiculed Mann's work in blog posts, going as far as comparing the scientist to the infamous Jerry Sandusky. The decade-long legal battle began in 2012, as Simberg and Stein targeted Mann's compelling and disconcerting findings pertaining to rising global temperatures, even taking a dig at his hockey stick chart, a critical illustration of the dramatic global temperature rise since pre-industrial times. The Washington, D.C. Superior Court granted Mann $1 million in punitive damages and a symbolic $1 in compensatory damages from each defendant. The lawsuit had extended to the National Review and Competitive Enterprise Institute, but a judge dismissed the case against them in 2021. However, predicted reports suggest Mann aims to appeal this decision. "I hope this verdict sends a message that falsely attacking climate scientists is not protected speech," said Mann. His attorney, Pete Fontaine, lauded the team's dedication, heralding the verdict as a major victory for truth scientists engaged in crucial research impacting human health and the environment. As of yet, there has been no response from the defendants or their representatives. In a significant development, the Democratic National Committee, DNC, has lodged a complaint with the Federal Election Commission, FEC, against Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s presidential campaign. The complaint accuses the Kennedy campaign of illicit coordination with a supporting outside group, American Values 2024, asserting that the group has unlawfully contributed to Kennedy Jr.'s signature gathering efforts, critical for qualifying for several state presidential ballots as an independent candidate. According to the DNC, instead of raising funds lawfully, Team Kennedy has sought assistance from American Values 2024, a legally registered hybrid PAC. However, this PAC is prohibited from direct coordination with Kennedy's presidential campaign, a rule that the DNC believes has been violated due to their necessary involvement in ballot access efforts. Following these allegations, Kennedy defended his campaign publicly. Meanwhile, Amaryllis Fox Kennedy, Kennedy's campaign manager, denied any coordination with the PAC, stating they have not received any signatures or offered any exclusive information to American Values PAC or any other PAC. American Values 2024 rebutted the accusations, labeling it a desperate DNC tactic, with co-chair Tony Lyons emphasizing that the PAC's activities have complied with federal laws. Deirdre Goldfarb, a ballot access attorney for the group, had earlier announced plans to gather signatures for Kennedy in 14 states. However, the DNC alleges that for the PAC to operate its signature gathering operation predictably, it would technically need to coordinate with the Kennedy campaign, violating federal campaign finance laws. The DNC has also drawn a line between American Values operations and former President Donald Trump supporters, specifically pointing out contributions from GOP megadonor Tim Mellon. DNC officials contend this is an attempt to undermine election laws and present Kennedy as a stalking horse. It remains to be seen how this complaint will impact Kennedy's campaign in the long run. From dominating performances to legendary dynasties, the American sports landscape has bore witness to numerous impressive feats. In recent times, the spotlight has been cast on a familiar team, the Chiefs, who are preparing to leave their own mark on American football. Just last year, they secured a dazzling victory in the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, they're set for another Super Bowl appearance. Their second in as many years, offering an opportunity to achieve a feat which is considered one of sport's biggest challenges: winning back-to-back titles. We're crossing over to our sports reporter, Greg Spear, for more insight on this story. Greg?
Thanks, Ruth. Indeed, securing back-to-back Super Bowl titles is a feat that has not been achieved in 20 years. The achievement takes on added dimension when you consider the unique hurdles within the NFL, such as the salary cap, waning motivation, and the pressure of one-and-done elimination games. Despite these challenges, history reminds us of the few who were able to surpass these impediments, namely the 1990s Chicago Bulls and the late 90s, early 00s New York Yankees, each pulling off a three-peat. More specifically related to NFL, the last back-to-back Super Bowl title was secured by the New England Patriots in 2003 and 2004, under the leadership of revered duo, head coach Bill Belichick and quarterback Tom Brady.
It's quite a rarity in American sports, isn't it, to defend a title?
Absolutely, Ruth. This isn't just limited to the NFL. Since the early 2000s Yankees team, no team has repeated as champion in MLB's World Series. The Stanley Cup has seen back-to-back winners merely twice since the millennium, whereas in the NBA, thanks to the advent of super teams, repeat champions have been comparatively more common. This season has certainly set the stage perfect for the Chiefs to etch their names into history.
Quite the stage indeed, Greg. They've proven their ability to show up in clutch moments in previous seasons, haven't they?
Without a doubt. And this season gives the Chiefs an amazing chance to draw parallels with their 2020 performance, where they beat the San Francisco 49ers at Super Bowl 54, before facing defeat against Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers a year later. Their first shot at consecutive Super Bowl titles. This will indeed be a sports saga to watch closely.
Welcome to Soundly Human News. I'm your host, Ruth Sterling. Much like a classic Taylor Swift track, her romantic journey has been bittersweet, intriguing, and replete with fascinating details. Swift, a renowned superstition aficionado, seems to have found good fortune in the number 13, a digit she claims to be linked with several of her life's golden moments. The recent AFC Championship saw Swift and Kansas City tight end Travis Kelce, her current beau, share a warm romantic moment, reminiscent of a sports-themed rom-com. Endeavoring to make the trans-Pacific flight from Japan in time for the Super Bowl, Swift just might find herself celebrating another victory for Kelce's team, making it her 13th in attendance for his games. Swift's past relationships may seem numerous, but in a surprising twist, Kelce falls perfectly as Swift's 13th public relationship, counting from her high school boyfriends including the likes of Joe Jonas, Taylor Lautner, John Mayer, and even a fleeting romance with American royalty Connor Kennedy. Swift's prolific songwriting has often been inspired by her first-hand experiences, turning her erstwhile relationships into poetic reflections channeled through chart-topping hits. The story of Taylor Swift teaches us that love is a universal roller coaster, a reality faced by everyone, billionaires included. Swift keeps us wondering about her future romantic endeavors, reminding us that we all kiss a few frogs before finding our Mr. Right. But there's no need to rush things. After all, love, just like music, unfolds at its own pace. Senior national security officials reportedly congregated in the White House Situation Room in December 2023 to address dire simulated scenarios potentially threatening the 2024 elections, according to unnamed sources. The officials wrestled with crises such as AI-created fake videos and potential violence at polling stations. These simulations interrogated the federal government's response capabilities and the conundrum of disinformation dissemination. Despite state and local authorities' increased trustworthiness, the question of how the federal government can support these agencies resurfaces. The role of deepfake videos in elections has become increasingly critical, especially in the wake of recent AI-made robocalls. U.S. officials are grappling with the speed and volume of disinformation that adversaries can produce, in conjunction with fears of meddling with U.S. elections. They are wary of speaking up about potential threats, without inadvertently amplifying the disinformation or appearing to misuse their authority. One point underscored in the discussion was the hesitance towards designating a lead federal agency to inform the public about the deepfake videos. However, federal agents could not be dispatched to manage potential poll violence because of jurisdictional limitations. Despite assurances from Chinese leader Xi Jinping that China would not interfere in the 2024 U.S. elections, the administration is still prepping for such a contingency. While acknowledging the dilemma, an administration official stressed election security is a top priority. State officials are also working on policies to counter deepfakes, although less than half of the states that responded referenced specific strategies against election-related deepfakes. This simulation comes in the wake of prior election issues, with U.S. officials striving to strike a balance between vigilance and caution regarding raising threat alerts. The challenge lies in exposing foreign interference without appearing political or influencing the electoral process. First off, in travel news, European airline Finnair has rolled out an experimental phase where they are weighing passengers along with their carry-on bags ahead of takeoff. The trial is intended to refine weight estimates before the journey, helping to improve fuel efficiency and safety measures. In railway news, notice a new luxury trail blazing the tracks, the Venice Simplon Orient Express. This swanky guided trip will head to Italy's Ligurian coast for the first glorious time ever in June 2024. For the well-heeled travelers among us, the journey is priced at $8,500 one way. Moving to the southern hemisphere in South Africa, Kruger Shalati, the train on the bridge, offers 24 modern suites with panoramas of Africa's Big Five. This hotel, built on a stationary train, promises an unforgettable, albeit stationary, travel experience. In Eastern Europe, Italy and Slovenia are reviving a direct train route, over a century after its initial run. A new high-speed service from Milan to Ljubljana is expected to commence soon. In war-torn Ukraine, trains remain the lifeline for long-distance journeys, as air travel is fraught with danger. Meanwhile, pop star Taylor Swift has hit the headlines with her private jet drama. After the sale of her Dassault Falcon 900 LX, she plans to fly to the Super Bowl in her larger Dassault Falcon 7X. In a lighter vein, airline passengers came to the rescue of baby flamingos on a flight from Atlanta to Seattle, using their warm coats as makeshift incubators. Lastly, on an unfortunate note in Thailand, one Canadian faced arrest for deploying an evacuation slide, causing an inconvenience to around 2,300 passengers. In search for a secluded beach getaway? Mexico's Riviera Nayarit and Zanzibar's islands offer some pristine experiences for intrepid travelers. To help you pack for your seaside retreat, our partners at CNN_ have curated a list of the best travel-friendly totes. Remember, the Lunar New Year is just around the corner. Check out our quick guide to China's spectacular dragon dance, and what this auspicious Year of the Dragon could mean for you. Let's dive into the complex and unpredictable political affairs currently taking place in Pakistan. Independent candidates, mostly affiliated with jailed political leader Imran Khan's party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, or PTI, seem to have taken an unexpected lead in the general elections. Here with a comprehensive report from Pakistan, our correspondent, Greg Spear.
Ruth, there has been a lot going on here. The vote counting process is still underway, but the Election Commission of Pakistan reports that independents have clinched 98 seats so far, with 22 still up for grabs. Most of them are affiliated with Khan's PTI. The Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Party, led by former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, are second with 69 seats, and the Pakistan People's Party is third with 51.
For perspective, how much does this upset the dynamic for forming the government?
That's a good question. None of the major parties will have the necessary 169 seats for a majority in parliament. This has left many uncertain as to who could be the next prime minister. There's talk of potential coalition governments, but nothing definite just yet.
What about the authenticity of the election results?
Ruth, that's where things get murkier. The slow vote count and allegations of vote rigging have raised questions about transparency. And these concerns aren't limited to Pakistan. International voices, including the U.S., have called for an investigation into alleged fraud and interference.
How have the people of Pakistan reacted to the situation?
There's massive unrest, Ruth. Protests demanding transparency in election results have turned violent in some places. In the northwestern region of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, clashes between police and the protesters led to the death of 2 people.
And Imran Khan, who's been out of the game because of his imprisonment. How is he still impacting the elections?
Interestingly, he's managed to send out messages via an AI-generated version of himself, rallying his supporters. The PTI-affiliated candidate's success can be seen as the people's defiance against the military and interim government, both of which Khan accuses of orchestrating his removal last year.
And yet, despite his incarceration, he continues to influence Pakistani politics.
Exactly, Ruth. However, this situation indicates a deeper issue: the tug-of-war between the civil and military establishments over Pakistan's democratic future. This election could be viewed as a referendum on the military's overarching influence in Pakistani politics. Now, more than ever, it's essential for Pakistan to maneuver its way towards a more stable and democratic society.
Thank you, Greg, for such insightful coverage. It seems Pakistan's political landscape is entering uncharted territory. It'll be fascinating to see how this plays out.
Indeed, Ruth. We are staying vigilant to cover any new developments here in Pakistan. Back to you.
In a show of confident dominance, former President Donald Trump will set foot in South Carolina on Saturday for the first time this year, aiming to solidify his standing as the GOP frontrunner. This follows decisive victories in 4 early presidential nominating contests. Trump and his campaign are confident about securing enough delegates by mid-March to declare him the presumptive Republican nominee over former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, much ahead of the GOP National Convention in July, according to several Trump campaign advisors. Trump's recent travel map includes a victory declaration in Nevada, a meet and greet in Pennsylvania, and a victory in the Republican caucuses in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Thursday brought him some pleasant news in the form of special counsel report that, although did not recommend any charges against President Joe Biden, raised concerns about his handling of classified documents and his memory. The future seems promising for Trump as a potential legal hurdle. An attempt to declare him an insurrectionist and take him off Colorado's presidential ballot appears to be a losing battle now. Despite all the campaign developments, former Governor Nikki Haley remains steadfast in her commitment to continue the race, extending beyond her home state's primary on February 24. However, there is a rising confidence within Trump's campaign circles, thanks to his continued strong polling and substantial support on the ground. This newfound confidence has translated into a less aggressive approach to campaigning for the South Carolina primary, as the campaign intends to shift focus to the general election rematch with Biden. The Trump campaign, spearheaded by senior advisor Susie Wiles, has ramped up its efforts in South Carolina compared to 2016, with enhanced ground game strategies. These strategies include utilizing state lawmakers and surrogates to put pressure on Haley. Trump also plans on launching direct attacks on Haley during his Saturday rally, arguing she is harming the Republican Party by continuing in the race. Haley, undeterred by the pressure, continues her campaign with fundraising and rallies in various Super Tuesday states, adamant about not leaving the race soon, and determined to compete till Super Tuesday on March 5. The former governor has also intensified her criticism of Trump, questioning his mental fitness and describing him as one among the grumpy old men. As the race continues to heat up, both campaigns are pulling out all stops, staking their place in what promises to be a deeply contested primary season. When it comes to greatness in the world of sports, the term greatest of all time is often in circulation. It's used to denote individuals whose achievements in their field are exceptional, whose talent emerges once in a generation. Patrick Mahomes, in just 7 seasons into his NFL career, is already making his case for this coveted designation. Despite a season that fell below the Kansas City Chiefs' usually high standards, Mahomes demonstrated his talent in postseason, setting to play in his 4th career Super Bowl, and disproving any doubts about cracks appearing in the Chiefs dynasty. "I already consider Mahomes the best, and if he wins this one, it's done," proclaims Nate Tice, former NFL coach. Mahomes' early promise was evident to his father, a former professional baseball player, describing, "The things he was doing at such a young age, I knew that was different." However, Mahomes' meteoric rise probably surpassed even the Chiefs' expectations when they selected him 10th overall in the 2017 NFL Draft, after trading multiple picks. But the impact of Mahomes goes beyond statistics. His unique football style, where he plays outside of the pocket, often opting for unpredictably exciting moves, is heralding a change in the traditional idea of a quarterback. His contribution to Kansas City extends to elevating its prominence on the international stage, lending to economic growth and infrastructural development after the Chiefs' success. Despite impressive statistics like more playoff wins and AFC titles than rival Tom Brady in their initial 6 seasons, Brady remains the standard for greatness for many. Brady's 7 Super Bowl rings and 2-0 postseason advantage over Mahomes rings strong. However, Mahomes, still potentially in his prime, could challenge this standing. The Chiefs' QB has displayed a resilience and versatility that bode well for his future career, regardless of changes in his team. As we watch Mahomes' career unfold, it's clear his unique talent is leaving an undeniable mark. The debates about the greatest of all time will continue, but Mahomes, with his early success and extraordinary talent, has already made an undeniable case. In a heartbreaking incident from Gaza last month, 5-year-old Palestinian girl, Hind Rajab, tragically lost her life after being stuck in a car under Israeli fire. According to the Palestine Red Crescent Society, Hind was in the car alongside her uncle, his wife, their children, and the response crew dispatched for their aid, all of whom were also killed. A recording of a distress call made by Hind's cousin, Layan Hamada, prior to her own death, disclosed the terrifying situation as it unfolded. The location coordinates of the incident were given to the Israeli military, who responded stating they were unfamiliar with the incident but were investigating. Critically, audio of the incident reveals Hind pleading for help, trapped in the car beside her deceased relatives. Hind's mother told CNN her daughter aspired to be a doctor, and like any mother, wished for the best for her child. This incident has sparked controversy and highlights the ongoing conflict and risks faced in the region. Investigations are ongoing as the region grapples with the tragic loss of life. In an unexpected twist during a Dutch third division football match, goalkeeper Lars Jansen scored an extraordinary goal from inside his own half, aiding his team, Noordwijk, secure a 3-1 victory over Amsterdamse FC. This captivating play unfolded as Jansen rushed out of his area to clear a pass towards his goal, colliding with Amsterdamse forward Marciano Mengerink. Following the collision, the crowd watched the ball fly almost the entire length of the pitch, over Amsterdamse's goalkeeper Gijs van Zetten, landing neatly in the back of the net. What's quite remarkable is that Jansen himself was unaware of his goal until he saw the wild celebrations of his teammates. The goal, unusual as it was, turned out to be crucial in setting Noordwijk on its path to victory. Talking to Voetbal in De Bollenstreek after the match, Jansen revealed that he didn't witness his goal due to the clash with Mengerink. In a good-natured manner, he expressed regret for not realizing it of his own accord. Despite this memorable incident marking Jansen's first goal as a goalkeeper, he was humble in admitting that it wasn't a conscious act, yet nonetheless an enjoyable one. A special counsel report drawn up has sparked fresh conversations in political circles about President Joe Biden's age and mental acuity. There were murmurs rippling through the audience when the president addressed House Democrats' retreat after the report. Immediate queries were raised about how these renewed questions about age could affect the public's perception of the president, whether it would be damaging, and if there's a plan to showcase the Biden they know behind the scenes.
Indeed, Ruth, this report even touched on why the president was resorting to using prepared note cards during his speech. Speculation has been rife, with some labeling the report as a partisan hatchet job orchestrated by an appointee from Donald Trump's camp in a bid to damage Biden. However, it's undeniable that the age issue has been a standing liability since the president expressed his desire for re-election.
So, Greg, how are House Democrats taking this news?
There was a mix of responses, Ruth. Some showed consternation, but there are also those who argue this is ageism and an extension of the double standards applied to Trump. However, concern remains that these questions about Biden's supposed declining mental acuity are becoming more prominent.
How are Biden's aides and his campaign addressing these concerns?
Inside the Biden camp, the atmosphere is tense. The strategy seems to focus on adapting Biden's public appearances to prevent any flubs that could feed the growing narrative of him bumbling through his days. Despite this, there are those within his team who believe overprotection could lead more gaffes. The approach is to have Biden do more informal campaign stops that highlight his connection with everyday Americans. However, this means more chances for unscripted moments which, regardless of Biden's extensive experience, might result in slips.
This isn't an easy situation, given the report and the age-related controversies. How's the Joe Biden we know in the private scene?
Most officials and aides who interact with Biden privately find him to be on top of things, Ruth. They point out that even those who publicly question his mental fitness, such as former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, have admitted behind closed doors that the president was on top of all discussions
except Rajab were killed. Rajab and Layan Hamada, her cousin, made desperate calls for help that were recorded by the PRCS and later circulated on social media. The PRCS explains an ambulance was dispatched, but due to the Israeli military closing off the area, it could not reach Rajab. The team, including 2 paramedics, went missing shortly thereafter, and despite continuous appeals for information, their fate remains unknown. Notably, the PRCS emphasizes that this case reflects the immense humanitarian crisis throughout the Palestinian territory, shedding light on the consequences of Israel's aggressive tactics. Reports indicate that Israel's intense Gaza bombing campaign has killed over 27,000 people and uprooted nearly 2 million from their homes. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, however, insists that they are unfamiliar with the incident and are still investigating it. Rajab's traumatic ordeal has placed her family, particularly her heartbroken mother, Wissam Hamada, in limbo. Despite the uncertainty and anxiety, the family clings to the hope that Rajab will be returned to them.
At this moment, details about the identities of those on board are still uncertain. The Federal Aviation Administration has confirmed that their agency, in conjunction with the National Transportation Safety Board, has launched an investigation into this tragic event.
The NTSB is leading the investigation, correct?
That's right, Ruth. They've already dispatched a GO team to the scene. This team will delve into the crash of the Airbus EC-130 helicopter. Reached out for further details, but there has been no additional information released yet. We'll continue to stay on top of this story and bring you updates as they come in.
In what could potentially escalate tensions between neighboring nations, satellite imagery has unveiled that Venezuela has strengthened its military presence by the border of Guyana. This substantial military bolstering comes despite Venezuela's previous claims of using diplomatic means to resolve an enduring territorial dispute over a piece of oil-rich Guyanese land. According to Maxar satellite imagery obtained in January, several new areas of rainforest near Venezuela's Anacoco Island military base, situated by the bordering Cuyuni River, have recently been cleared. Moreover, improvement and expansion of operations were evident with advanced infrastructure, armored vehicles, and an apparent helicopter site. Evidently ignored was a previous agreement with Guyana to not threaten or use force against one another in any circumstances, and to refrain from escalating any conflict or disagreement. Remarkable is the addition of what appears to be construction supplies and stockpiling of armored vehicles. North of the base, satellite pictures disclosed the presence of a heavy river ferry, meaning large areas of rainforest have now been cleared. Venezuela has publicized its military expansion in the region unabashedly, with propaganda videos showing bustling activities like land clearing by bulldozers, army vehicles on the move, and military transport helicopters. According to the Venezuelan army, the base expansion, undertaken by the 11th Armored Brigade, and the 6th Venezuelan Army Corps Engineers, aims to enhance the response system against any threats in this disputed border area. This expansion was first flagged by the Washington-based think tank, Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. The territorial dispute is significant in that it covers approximately 2/3 of Guyanese national territory. Last year, tension in the region heightened after a Venezuelan referendum aimed at creating a Venezuelan state within the disputed region, a move that Guyana deemed an existential threat and a step toward annexation. As millions prepare for the Lunar New Year, marking the first new moon of the lunar calendar, we dive into the rich traditions associated with this festival. The Chinese zodiac calendar, a 12-year cycle represented by different animals, will usher in the Year of the Dragon in 2024. Followers believe their fortunes hinge on the stellar deity's positions, commonly known as Tai Sui. Interestingly, the Lunar New Year carries many folk tales, one of which entails Neon, a mythical underwater beast. Legend says Neon was driven away by a mysterious man who wore red clothes, hung red banners, and lit firecrackers. These elements have since become traditions of the Lunar New Year celebrations. Preparation for this festival is an immersive experience, from cooking traditional foods representing growth and prosperity, to the hanging of red signs meant to keep Neon at bay and welcome good fortune. Cleaning is also an integral tradition, done ahead of the festival to rid homes of any accumulated bad luck from the past year. However, further cleaning is avoided until a few days into the Lunar New Year, to prevent washing away newly arrived good luck. A grand family reunion dinner, filled with dishes symbolizing luck, marks Lunar New Year's Eve, with the giving of gifts and visiting family members and friends following soon after. Married couples also hand out hongbao, lai si, red packets, believed to protect children by warding off evil spirits. The subsequent days see individuals consulting the stars to understand what is in store for the year, making temple visits, and ultimately celebrating the Lantern Festival. This festival, falling on the 15th and final day of the Lunar New Year preparations, is known to celebrate the first full moon of the year. This signifies the departure of winter and the start of spring. Lanterns are lit to symbolize the drive out of darkness and the hope for a brighter year. Historically, this was the only day when young girls could be outdoors to admire the lanterns and interact with boys. Hence its nickname, Chinese Valentine's Day. Today, cities worldwide continue to host dramatic lantern displays and festivals on this day, capturing the spirit of the Lunar New Year celebrations. In a tragic turn of events today, 2 individuals have lost their lives following the crash of a small plane on Interstate 75, near Naples in Florida. The incident, which also involved the collision with a vehicle, occurred shortly after the pilot reported an emergency to air traffic control. The Bombardier Challenger 600 aircraft reportedly had 5 passengers on board when the crash occurred around 3:15 p.m. ET, according to the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. The plane had taken off from the Ohio State University Airport and was scheduled to land at Naples Airport before departing for Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport. 3 people survived the crash, according to Robin King, spokesperson for the Naples Airport Authority. The details about the condition of the survivors, however, have not been ascertained yet. A large section of the highway remains closed after the crash, with no specified time for reopening. Eyewitnesses report a harrowing scene as the plane clipped the top of a pickup truck, skidded along the highway before slamming into a concrete wall and bursting into flames. Eyewitness: Ms. Brianna Walker seems to believe that the pilot was attempting to land the plane on the highway. What particular led to this heart-rending incident is not yet understood. We do know that the pilot had reported both engines failed, and a crash landing was imminent. "Cleared to land, but we're not going to make the runway," were the chilling last words heard from the aircraft. The FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board have initiated an investigation into this disaster. As more updates come in, we'll be sure to keep you informed. Our thoughts are with the families affected by this tragic event. In an escalating humanitarian crisis, internet connectivity in Sudan has been rendered non-existent for a third consecutive day. Amid a near-year-long conflict between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces, which has culminated in thousands dead and millions displaced, this blackout seriously disrupts communication across the country. The Sudanese Foreign Ministry accuses the RSF of orchestrating the shutdown, which has inhibited the local populace from seeking safety and accessing critical services, such as healthcare and banking. Despite the allegations, the RSF has failed to respond to the charges. This digital silence aggravates the plight of the Sudanese people, a dilemma recognized by the United Nations. They recently called for a staggering $4.1 billion to alleviate the epic suffering across the country, noting that nearly half of Sudan's populace, roughly 25 million people, require support. Essential services have been severely hampered, attacks on humanitarian workers are rampant, and access to aid has been stymied by ongoing disputes. The RSF, perhaps in response to growing international pressure, has urged international organizations to provide urgent relief, acknowledging that Sudanese civilians teeter on the brink of actual starvation. Contrariwise, the head of RSF, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemedti, attributed this crisis to the obstruction of humanitarian aid by opposing forces. The UN's funding appeal documents the gravity of the situation. Nearly 18 million individuals face acute hunger, while 19 million children are not in school. Health facilities in conflict areas are largely non-functional, and gender-based violence continues unabated. Regrettably, Sudan now hosts the world's largest displacement crisis, with children constituting almost 4 million of those forced to abandon their homes. North Darfur's Zamzam camp, hosting displaced individuals, reports that malnutrition kills one child every 2 hours, per estimates by Doctors Without Borders. The severe human rights abuses perpetuated by both warring factions, as determined by the U.S., implicate the SAF and RSF in war crimes, with the latter bearing responsibility for ethnic cleansing within Sudan. The International Criminal Court believes there is grounds to suggest both sides are implicated in genocide, war crimes, and horrific offenses against humanity. This crisis necessitates immediate international intervention and full-scale humanitarian aid. In the post-Roe v. Wade world of Idaho, the Adkins family's personal and legal struggle highlights growing concerns regarding the state's stringent abortion laws. Jen and John Adkins, originally from Caldwell, Idaho, shared to CNN their deeply moving experience of needing to travel out of state to Oregon, following a tragic pregnancy diagnosis. Jen's pregnancy turned grim when an ultrasound examination revealed their unborn child likely had Turner syndrome, a genetic condition resulting in miscarriage in over 90% of cases. The disorder could also prompt severe complications for pregnant women, including edema and preeclampsia, which could be life-threatening. In the face of these risks, however, Idaho's restrictive abortion laws necessitated the Adkins to cross state lines for their healthcare needs. As a result, the couple embarked on a 6-hour journey to Portland, Oregon, following a daunting revelation they couldn't receive an abortion within their home state. The Adkins experiences are not isolated. Dr. Julie Lyons, a family medicine physician and plaintiff in the lawsuit against Idaho's stringent abortion policies, expressed her concern for expecting mothers needing to pursue reproductive health care outside the state. The intersect of personal pain and legislative restriction culminated in the Adkins family filing a lawsuit against the state of Idaho, which is supported by the advocacy organization, the Center for Reproductive Rights. The suit seeks clarity on the medical exceptions that exist within Idaho's abortion bans. Notably, states where abortion bans have taken effect tend to have about a third fewer obstetricians per capita than states where abortion remains legal, a CNN analysis of federal data found. A spokesman for Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador refuted these claims while emphasizing Idaho's commitment to safeguarding life. Idaho's current regulations continue to stir debate, with concerns growing over the reverberations of restrictive healthcare policies on pregnant individuals and healthcare providers. In a major development, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is directing the military to formulate a plan for evacuation of Rafah, a city in southern Gaza, in preparation for anticipated ground assaults. Rafah, home to approximately 1.3 million people, a significant number displaced from other parts of Gaza, is considered Hamas's last stronghold. However, the endeavor appears logistically challenging, as vast populations of Palestinians will be left with no choice but to evacuate, while being surrounded by closed-off borders. In the Israeli Prime Minister's office's words, the plan encapsulates the complexity of neutralizing Hamas, which forms 4 battalions in Rafah, while attending to significant civilian displacement. Rafah, now the largest populace in Gaza untouched by the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, has expanded rapidly due to continuous influxes of internally displaced Gazans. The city's rapid expansion is visible in satellite images, showing the emergence of vast tent cities. Responses to the plan are already drawing criticism and concern. President Mahmoud Abbas's office has called the strategy a dangerous prelude, labeling the escalating tension as a serious threat towards displacing Palestinians from their historic lands. There is fear this escalation would cause further instability in the region. Citizens of Rafah express their profound fear of having nowhere else to turn in case of Israeli invasion. They emphasize their precarious living conditions, with their current resources barely matching everyday needs. With strong hints of military action, yet no confirmed plans of how to minimize civilian causalities, Israel's military operation remains concerning. This situation has prompted the United States to express reservations on proceeding with hasty action in Rafah without appropriate strategical planning. U.S. President Joe Biden has strongly criticized Israel's military efforts. Biden has been advocating for humanitarian aid in Gaza, expressing deep concern for innocent civilians battling life-threatening conditions. Simultaneously, Stefan Dujarric, UN spokesperson, echoed these concerns, stating that the considerable concentration of Rafah's population complicates attempts to protect civilians amidst potential ground assaults. He further affirmed the UN's stance against mass displacement, that would invariably be involuntary. The Norwegian Refugee Council has also warned of Rafah morphing into a bloody battlefield that leaves no room for escape, raising further concerns about the implications of a possible ground attack on this densely populated region. In a landmark verdict that carries potential implications for gun-owning parents nationwide, Jennifer Crumbley has been found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in relation to the Oxford High School mass shooting of November 30, 2021. A tragic act perpetrated by her son Ethan, resulting in the deaths of 4 students and the injury of 6 students and a teacher. Jennifer's husband, James Crumbley, is set to face the same charges starting from March 5, a reality that legal analysts suggest may be impacted by the verdict in the mother's case. Certain key factual differences do exist between the 2 cases, and his defense team will have the advantage of prior insight. However, as Eve Primus, professor of law at the University of Michigan Law School cautioned, it is not a foregone conclusion that Jennifer's conviction will necessarily predict the outcome for her husband. The Crumbleys both stand accused of gross negligence for enabling their son, then 15, access to a firearm, a lack of adequate mental health treatment, and failure to alert authorities despite evident warning signs. Their son Ethan was charged with 1 count of terrorism causing death, 4 counts of murder among others, and was sentenced to life without parole last year. While both parents share the responsibility of providing their son a firearm, there are differences in the specifics. Notably, James was the one who purchased the gun that was later used in the school shooting. Furthermore, the extent of James' knowledge pertaining to their son's mental health issues remains uncertain. These findings and the outcomes of their respective trials may set a precedent for how parents may be held accountable for such occurrences in future. It is indeed a critical juncture in the conversation about gun control and parental responsibility. James' trial will now be keenly observed for its potential to further frame this discussion. Savvy viewers will know that when Super Bowl Sunday rolls around each year, cities across America come alive. But this year, Las Vegas, best known for its bright lights and grand entertainment, is playing host to the big game for the first time ever in its glittering history. The city is eager to showcase what it has to offer, and hopes this will be a major milestone in landing future Super Bowls and other significant sports events.
That's right, Ruth. This is definitely a big deal for a city like Las Vegas, which typically draws crowds with its shows, food, and of course, gambling. Steve Hill, the chief executive officer and president of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, said that they're hoping for a considerable economic impact of around $600 million, or possibly more. It's a huge opportunity for local businesses too, who are already seeing increased foot traffic and attention ahead of the game.
Of course, the Super Bowl isn't just about the economic repercussions. It's an incredible moment for the city, the culmination of over a decade of efforts to become a destination for sports, in addition to its traditional attractions.
Exactly. The Sahara Las Vegas Hotel Casino's general manager Paul Hobson said they've been sold out for the last month, and it's not just about the game. There are a slew of private shows and parties planned. It's going to be a mammoth weekend for the entire city.
What kind of turnout do they expect?
They're planning for an estimated 330,000 people to hit the streets of the valley this weekend. There's heightened room rates, with Las Vegas hotel rooms being booked on average for $392 per night. That's a whopping 159% increase from the same weekend last year.
And what's the general sentiment among academics and economists?
Well, bar the usual skepticism when it comes to big figures, the consensus is that, yes, there will be more money flowing in this Super Bowl weekend than a typical weekend. However, Frank Stevenson, a professor of economics at Berry College, cautions that much of this tourism surge may displace the visitors who would have been in Vegas anyway. But there's agreement that the added revenue will go beyond just tourism and will be cascaded across restaurants, sport events, corporate meetings, and parties.
It appears the Super Bowl weekend paradigms are being shifted in Las Vegas. But we can't forget about the fans. What's planned for them?
Well, aside from the glitz, glam, and football, there are concerts, parties, and even special donut making at Cafe Lola for the official Super Bowl tailgate party. It's going to be one epic, supercharged weekend.
Thank you, Greg. Las Vegas is indeed set to make its Super Bowl debut with a bang, hoping that the high stakes will pay off. Hope everyone enjoys the game. In a significant move against cybercrime, U.S. authorities have apprehended suspects in Nigeria and Malta, marking the latest crackdown on a global cybercrime syndicate, known for its widespread theft and sale of American data. The group, operating on a grand scale, has specifically targeted Americans and small businesses, according to the U.S. Justice Department. Among the vehicles for the group's notorious activities is a popular hacking tool known as the Warzone Rat, reportedly sold for less than $200. This tool, surprisingly accessible, enables global cyber thieves to steal personal and financial information for sale on the darker corners of the web. A reported 7,000 customers have bought this malevolent software, with implications such that even foreign governments have utilized it for hacking operations, as stated by Brett Leatherman, the FBI's acting Deputy Assistant Director of Cyber Operations. Declining to name these governments, Leatherman underscores that while the crackdown does not eradicate the tool completely, it impairs people's current ability to obtain and utilize it. This latest crackdown features arrests in Malta and Nigeria. In Malta, 27-year-old Daniel Melli, who has allegedly been active on cybercriminal forums since his teenage years, finds himself in custody at the request of the Justice Department. He is charged with selling multiple hacking tools, including the Warzone Rat. According to U.S. prosecutors, one such sale took place undercover in 2022, with Melli selling a tool to an FBI employee for $180 in cryptocurrency. In Nigeria, the authorities have secured the arrest of 31-year-old Prince Onyoziri Odinakachi, who is accused of providing customer service for buyers of the Warzone Rat hacking tool. Currently, the U.S. is lobbying for the extradition of both Melli and Odinakachi. However, this crackdown, while damaging, does not signal the end for this cybercrime group, prompting further vigilance and international cooperation in the ongoing struggle against such far-reaching cybercriminal activities. Welcome back to the Soundly Human Network. As we edge closer to the Super Bowl, Sunday's matchup is not just about the Kansas City Chiefs defending their championship against the San Francisco 49ers. It's also an amalgamation of American capitalism, entertainment, and, yes, Taylor Swift. As some of you know, Swift's addition to the football world has added a layer of entertainment that extends beyond sports predictions or spectacular displays of American capitalism. Her presence, linked with Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce, sparked a surge of interest from her fanbase, the Swifties. They've now made their mark on NFL viewership, vetting Kelce with internet speed and seamlessly blending football with pop culture. Swift's touch on the gridiron hasn't just boosted sales of Travis's number 87 Chiefs jersey by 400%, or gotten students to wear Chiefs colors in support of Taylor's boyfriend. It also brought a new layer of complexity to an already charged world of sports commentary. Unsurprisingly, some have noted a disturbance in the traditional order, with commentators going as far as branding Swift a distraction, even though the hard facts tell a different tale. The Chiefs won 9 out of the 12 games Swift attended, for instance. But perhaps most interestingly, Swift's influence may be recasting the NFL's identity, tying in younger, female audiences who are eager to keep up with the Swift-Kelce relationship. This may even bolster the NFL's sizable earnings, with estimates of Swift's financial impact hitting around $330 million, leading some to dub it the Swift effect. However, while Taylor's football era seems to be enriching the NFL financially and culturally, it hasn't come without backlash. Some critics have gone as far as suggesting the Swift-Kelce relationship is part of a Democratic election plot, a theory that drastically underestimates Swift's autonomy and power. But, as we look forward to Super Bowl 58, Swift's influence on the NFL continues to be a fascinating case study of pop culture merging with sports. Whether or not this chapter ends with a "Marry Me Juliet" moment or a breakup that'll inspire Swift's next song, one thing's certain: Swift's mark on NFL might just be the beginning of a new era of football fan culture. One we may do well to welcome. After all, 13 plus 87 equals a 100. And that, my friends, is a perfect score. Turning now to Europe, a myriad of farmers' protests are sweeping the continent. Stinging from an onslaught of frustrations, from environmental regulations to excessive bureaucracy, farmers have taken to the streets, brandishing tractors, eggs, and their raw discontent. Notably, while the most dramatic protests have been in France, similar demonstrations are occurring in other countries, including Italy, Spain, Romania, and Germany. Reporter Greg Spear is here to help us delve into the unrest. Greg, could you shed some light on this?
Of course, Ruth. European agriculture contributes to merely 1.4% of the European Union's GDP. But recent demonstrations, particularly the blockades over cheap Ukrainian imports, have shown the significant disruption farmers are capable of instigating. Governments are now scrambling to placate the escalating tension.
That sounds daunting. We understand that the protests struck at the heart of the EU earlier this month, correct?
Yes, during a major summit on Ukraine, farmers stormed Brussels on February 1st, showing their frustrations by pelting eggs and causing disturbances outside the Parliament building. Similar incidents of road blockades and traffic disruptions were reported across Belgium, France, and other countries.
And what seems to be the crux of these grievances?
Farmers are battling different challenges. They claim the soaring costs of energy, fertilizer, and transport, owing to Russia's war in Ukraine, are stretching them thin. Moreover, they are contending with falling agricultural product prices amid inflation. The French plan to phase out a tax break on diesel fuel for farmers, which is part of a broader energy transition policy, has incited further anger. Cheap foreign imports, lack of equal competition, and the environmental targets set by the EU are also topics of contention.
What action has been taken to assuage the farmers' concerns?
At the EU level, there has been a delay in rules that would have compelled farmers to set aside land for encouraging biodiversity. This provides temporary relief. Berlin has partially stepped back on its plans to cut diesel subsidies. Greece plans to extend a special tax rebate on agricultural diesel. And France just announced a series of measures including the allocation of €150 million in tax and social support. But so far, these measures have not been enough to quell the situation entirely.
I see. So the protests persist?
Yes, that's correct, Ruth. While some farmers see the government concessions as a step forward, many believe they are not enough and call for additional measures. The situation remains tense, fueled by upcoming European Parliament elections, in which environmental policies and the EU target of reaching net zero by 2050 are hot-button issues. This unrest could potentially swing the vote in favor of far-right parties that express solidarity with the farmers.
Fascinating insight. Greg, thank you for your comprehensive coverage of this ongoing situation. As always, we'll be monitoring these protests closely.
Soundly Human News returns in 60 seconds. Soundly Humans 24/7 news coverage returns right now.
Welcome to another news update. Over in the southern Philippines, a young girl was miraculously retrieved from a tragic landslide just yesterday, according to local authorities. As poor conditions persist, there's a continued, desperate search for over 110 people still missing since the disaster struck. Incident Commander Engineer Ariel Capoy announced in a recent virtual press briefing that the rescue operations are, indeed, ongoing. Elizabeth Wee, a provincial representative, confirmed that in light of unpredictable weather conditions, preemptive evacuations were conducted across 8 evacuation centers, aiding 1,559 individuals thus far. The young girl rescued is currently stable, according to government reports. Davao de Oro Governor Dorothy Gonzaga believes her rescue offers a sign of hope. However, for families of the missing, the wait is indeed agonizing, as rescue efforts were temporarily paused Thursday due to limited visibility and intermittent slides. One resident, Wilfredo Pylones, revealed the emotional toll of his son's absence and the prolonged rescue operations to state broadcaster PTV. The local landscape, rich in raw metals, and spread across sprawling mountainous highlands, interspersed with agricultural villages, was shown in chilling aerial photos by the military, spotlighting large areas swallowed by mud due to the landslide. The tragedy has claimed at least 45 of the missing, who are employees of local company Apex Mining. These employees were waiting on buses to exit the mine when they were swept up in the landslide. Deadly weather conditions across Mindanao since late January have precipitated more than 20 deaths due to floods and landslides, as reported by the National Disaster Authority. Stay tuned for more updates as the situation continues to unfold. In election news, GOP Representative Matt Rosendale, from Montana's House Freedom Caucus, has announced his bid for Senate, setting up an intense primary against retired Navy SEAL Tim Sheehy, the candidate backed by National Republicans and the National Republican Senatorial Committee. While Rosendale's move contradicts preferences of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, the representative remained undeterred. Major developments occurred soon after the announcement, with former President Donald Trump endorsing Sheehy, praising him as an American hero and highly successful businessman. Despite not receiving the former president's endorsement, Rosendale stated that he is confident he will win the primary election, supported by his local endorsement. The upcoming Montana election, seen as critical for Republicans' efforts to regain Senate control, is turning out to be a remarkable test for GOP leadership. Vexing incumbent GOP leaders, the new candidate has had a history of challenging party decisions, having been one of the 8 House Republicans who voted to remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. Montana's junior senator, Steve Daines, criticized Rosendale for instigating a divisive primary and reiterated his support for Sheehy. Meanwhile, Democratic Senator Jon Tester, running for a fourth term, is one of the most vulnerable Democrats up for re-election in 2024. The complexity of this race reflects the broader struggles within the GOP between establishment-aligned figures and those more aligned with the party's right wing. Stay tuned for more updates as we continue to bring you significant events from the political arena. Rolling Stone's forceful and analytical editor-in-chief, Noah Schachtman, announced his resignation on Friday. This decision comes after numerous discussions with Gus Wenner, the CEO of Rolling Stone, about the future direction of the renowned cultural publication. Schachtman, stepping down on March 1, expressed pride in the team's achievements under his leadership, including high-profile scoops, award nominations, and an enormous uptick in viewership. In the internal announcement, Wenner appreciated Schachtman's contributions, hinting at a patient and diligent search for a new editor. In the interim period, Deputy Editor Sean Woods and Digital Director Lisa Totsi will jointly handle editorial leadership. Undeterred by the impending vacancy at the helm, Wenner expressed confidence in the team and anticipation of the magazine's future evolution. Schachtman, despite relinquishing his editor's position, will continue to write for the magazine and explore other ventures, including a startup project. Notably, during his tenure, Schachtman, formerly of The Daily Beast, had been refreshingly transparent about his intent to modernize the magazine's culture, helping it transition into the digital age. His bold approach included recruitment from his previous publication and an inclusion of more political content. Similarly, he was unflinchingly prepared to scrutinize even the biggest names in the music industry. His departure also comes in the wake of the unsettling controversy surrounding co-founder Jan Wenner's prejudiced comments, for which he faced public backlash. Schachtman valiantly addressed the controversy, underscoring Rolling Stone's commitment to examining its own history. In the world of U.S. politics, the concerns regarding the age and mental fitness of presidents, particularly of both President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, have been escalating. As the possibility looms for a 2024 election run, both frontrunners would be approaching or exceeding the age of 80 during their respective second terms. Public gaffes have stirred concerns, with Biden confusing names of world leaders and Trump confusing politicians in speeches. An NBC News poll found 76% of registered voters have major or moderate concerns about Biden's fitness for a second term, while 48% said the same about Trump. But what is the scientific understanding of cognition at age 80? Dr. Emily Rogalski, a neurology professor at the University of Chicago, states cognitive abilities peak in our 30s and gradually decline. Symptoms include slower recall, multitasking difficulties, and mild attention span reduction. Though frustrating, occasional moments of word or name forgetfulness, often triggered by stress, illness, distractions, or lack of sleep, do not suggest broader cognitive or memory problems, argued Dr. Angela Roberts of Western University. However, when cognitive difficulties become frequent and disrupt daily life, a clinical diagnosis of dementia can be made. Yet, some cognitive skills, known as crystallized abilities, which result from lifelong learning and experiences, often improve with age. There is no significant evidence to suggest a cognitive drop-off at age 80, and individual cognitive aging varies greatly. Research suggests those with longevity in their family genetics might age more slowly. Both Biden and Trump had parents who lived beyond 90. Although voters' concerns over age and cognitive function in positions of power are valid, the risk doesn't guarantee a decline, given the individual variability. There are calls to resist ageist assumptions, and to note that ageism can significantly impact health negatively. Public figures and medical professionals alike underline that sound clinical judgments, thorough investigations, and transparent medical records are key to informed speculations about a public figure's cognitive abilities. As of now, neither Biden nor Trump have publicly released their recent cognition-related medical results. United States Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has emerged as a key player in President Biden's team, serving as a transparent economic operative amid upcoming elections. Despite 55% of voters stating in a recent CNN poll that the president's policies have negatively impacted the economy, Yellen has taken to the front lines, actively criticizing former President Trump's infrastructure and tax measures. Her expert knowledge and widely regarded apolitical stance make her an esteemed advocate for the Biden administration, especially so as Biden steers his team towards a more prominent role in his re-election campaign. With persistently low approval ratings, the president is targeting younger and diverse cabinet members who intimately understand his legislative achievements. The aim is to reinvigorate enthusiasm for the president's second term among the public. Furthermore, the administration is forging ahead in combating public concerns over the president's age and memory, as per the report by special counsel Robert Hur. In response, Biden's team of emissaries are focusing their efforts on conveying the benefits of the president's legislative wins, as they tour key states while making appearances at significant events. With an increasing number of trips by cabinet officials around the country to showcase Biden's legislative accomplishments, the mission remains constant: to inform the American populace about improvements to their lives through past or present legislative actions. White House Chief of Staff Jeff Zients expressed, "The cabinet is the first line of defense and offense in ensuring we execute on the president's agenda. They are the perfect spokespeople to talk about what we have gotten done and the work ahead." The team, including Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm, and Education Secretary Miguel Cardona, is also leveraging their diverse backgrounds to engage and unite key coalition groups. In adherence to the Hatch Act of 1939, which separates political from official activities, cabinet secretaries in the Biden administration operate in their professional capacities, while strictly avoiding potential legal missteps. They can partake in campaign events in their personal capacity, further strengthening their influence and outreach to key voting demographics. President Biden's agenda is clear: to assemble a cabinet that represents America's diversity and provides both political and substantial strength. As the election year unfolds, it remains to be seen how effectively these diverse leaders can communicate the administration's goals and achievements to the American public. Thank you for joining us on Soundly Human. I am your news anchor, Ruth Sterling. A recently released report by special counsel Robert Hur spared President Joe Biden of criminal charges, but has ignited an intense political debate concerning Biden's age and memory. The probe scrutinized Biden's handling of classified documents and concluded he had not, notably, committed any illegalities. This same report, however, portrayed Biden as elderly and prone to moments of forgetfulness, a narrative which has always been a point of political vulnerability for the president, particularly in the run-up to the 2024 election. After facing ongoing Republican accusations that the report's content exposes incapability, Biden held an impromptu press conference Thursday to counter these claims. Defending his own sharpness and memory, Biden fired back with anger and frustration, pointing out the report's distinction between his own handling of classified material and ex-President Donald Trump's allegedly criminal conduct. Despite his vehement defense, Biden's emotional demeanor and fast-paced news conference inadvertently amplified the underlying question of his suitability for office due to his age. His detractors pointed to the president's misnaming of a current European leader and mistaken reference to the president of Mexico when speaking about a Middle East crisis as evidence of his forgetfulness. Further concerns were raised when Biden appeared to struggle recalling the date of his late son, Beau's passing during an interview. However, the president's age, though a frequently discussed topic and a point of frustration for his supporters, is not the sole factor that voters are taking into consideration. With Trump, his likely opponent, currently facing 91 charges and a record of challenging the rule of law, and Vice President Kamala Harris also fending off queries about her experience and suitability, voter attention extends beyond Biden's age. In the polls, only about a quarter of Americans believe that Biden possesses the required stamina and sharpness to effectively serve. Paradoxically, despite his also advancing age, over half of the respondents think Trump does. Even within Democratic circles, there is an ongoing concern about Biden's age. The president and his campaign have found tackling this delicate issue challenging as it reflects deeply personal concerns many understand and wrestle with. Despite it being a powerful line of attack for Republicans, some of whom show a sharp edge of ageism, Biden continues to display his tenacity through rigorous campaigning and multiple foreign trips. However, his demanding schedule and the global crises he's concurrently wrestling with highlights once more the pressures of his presidency. Biden's supporters argue that criticisms leveled at the president's age and acuity are not fairly balanced against Trump's record and erratic conduct. Trump, they argue, is equipped with an exuberance that seems to shield his own age-related vulnerabilities from scrutiny. Meanwhile, the incidents that are raising alarm bells around his fitness to serve, 4 impending criminal trials, autocratic patterns, and promises of personal retribution against his political opponents, are seen in a different light by his loyal base. Special counsel Hur's report criticized Biden's handling of classified material following the discovery of documents at his home and office, but found no grounds for criminal charges due to insufficient evidence of willful intent. Comparing Biden's handling of classified documents with Trump's hoarding of such materials at his Mar-a-Lago resort, Hur revealed that Biden cooperated with the investigation, while Trump is accused of obstruction in a criminal indictment. Republican criticisms accusing Biden of suffering from dementia are harsh. Even more tempered comments from Republican senators like Thom Tillis underscore the severity of the debate surrounding Biden's age. In contrast, Democrats have dismissed any concerns about Biden's mental sharpness, with Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, for instance, stating, "When I came back from Ukraine the last time, I spent a good amount of time with him on the phone, talking about Ukraine and the details, and he was sharp." The political paradox is that the report, while liberating Biden from criminal prosecution, may have inadvertently damaged him politically because of age-related questions. Conversely, criminal trials facing Trump appear to politically benefit him by galvanizing his base, who see him as a victim of political persecution. Thus, the lead-up to the November election is set to be an unprecedented competition between 2 elderly opponents, both of whom have previously served a term in the Oval Office and consistently defied the efforts of younger generations to succeed them. Stay tuned as we continue to update you with these and other developments across the nation and around the globe. We are Soundly Human, delivering news with integrity and humanity. In our cultural highlight, we delve into cinema to explore a fascinating trend that parallels the journey of women in the film industry to Mary Shelley's 1818 pioneering novel, Frankenstein. Just as Shelley, cracking the gender norm, dared to pen one of the literature's early Gothic gems, today women inch by inch, towards gaining more directorial roles in a Hollywood ecosystem that has long been a male-dominated province. Mirroring this evolutionary path, we've seen feminist reinterpretations of the Frankenstein narrative, including last year's critically acclaimed Poor Things, which portrays a reanimated woman crafting her own identity, and the latest in this series, Lisa Frankenstein. Directed by Zelda Williams in her directorial debut, Lisa Frankenstein presents the act of creation by women as a groundbreaking yet chaotic journey, fraught with complex emotions and leaning toward an ambivalent empowerment. The unique feature of this film is its unpolished narrative, embracing the messiness of the process, just like the act of creation. Set in the context of a 1980s teen comedy, our protagonist Lisa, portrayed by Kathryn Newton, is a teen grappling with her mother's death and a new suburban life. With a plot that unravels like a series of surprising tinderboxes, Lisa gradually evolves into a creator herself, sculpting from the revived remains of a love-struck zombie, an unlikely friend and betrayer, while reinventing her own identity. The complex narrative landscape of Lisa Frankenstein, hailed as celebratory of women's directorial ascendance, includes nods to groundbreaking films like Emerald Fennell's noir reinvention, Saltburn, Celine Song's ambitious Past Lives, and the mainstream juggernaut, Greta Gerwig's Barbie. However, reflecting on recent reports with sobering statistics, the evolution of women in the filmmaking industry has been glacially slow. In 2007, women directed only 2.7% of the top-grossing films. This rose to 15% in 2020, yet recent figures for 2023 highlighted disappointing recidivism, with women heading only 12% of the year's top movies. This is contrastingly more stark for women of color, who directed a mere 2.7% of the most popular films this year. In light of these grim stats, the industry seems to be stuck in a Frankenstein-like state of its own, struggling to break free from the patriarchal fabric it was woven in. Expressing this anguish, Lisa Frankenstein emerged as an exultant call to action, a reminder that there's work to be done, battles to be fought, and that the evolution of women in cinema has just begun. For every Lisa out there yearning for a canvas to sketch their reality, it's a rallying cry to be the monster of change, no matter how grotesque the journey might appear. In our sports news today, we spotlight the journey of San Francisco 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan, currently regarded as one of the finest defensive minds in the NFL. A journey traced by longtime NFL writer and analyst Mike Silver, who recalls his first interaction with a then 15-year-old Shanahan. His career spans multiple roles throughout the league, culminating in his announcement as the 49ers head coach in 2017. Shanahan's tenure has been marked by sustained success, including a Super Bowl appearance and back-to-back NFC Championship games in 2022 and 2023. However, the elusive Super Bowl title continues to be a point of contention, with Silver stating that Shanahan needs this victory to solidify his legacy. Shanahan's continued success can be attributed to his innovative offensive play calling and his squad of talented offensive players, including Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Brock Purdy. His relationship with Purdy has been monumental in enhancing the team's performance and success. Despite dealing with criticisms of nepotism, Shanahan insists his success is a product of his own hard work and dedication. As the son of a long-tenured NFL coach, Mike Shanahan, Kyle has journeyed from being a graduate assistant to the NFL's youngest head coach, proving time and again that he wasn't merely depending on his father. As anticipation builds towards Super Bowl 58, Shanahan looks forward to breaking the jinx of Super Bowl losses and shrugging off the critiques. His legacy now is within touching distance, just like it was in 1994, when he watched his father clinch the Super Bowl victory as a 15-year-old ballboy. As Silver concludes, a Super Bowl ring will silence Shanahan's critics and seal his championship legacy. Join us as we track Shanahan's journey to the pinnacle of NFL success. Let's see if this time around, he manages to secure the elusive Super Bowl title. Stay tuned for more updates from the world of sport here on Soundly Human. In an ironic turn of events, the National Football League, NFL, which traditionally took a stern stance against gambling, is set to host its first Super Bowl in Las Vegas, a city possibly best known for its gaming-centric lifestyle. This significant shift comes years after fans began betting on football, propelling the sport's visibility and indirectly contributing to its revenue. Despite this, the NFL is striving to maintain a degree of detachment from gambling. Players can still face penalties, including fines and suspensions, for participating in betting activities. Professor Victor Matheson of the College of the Holy Cross, who teaches a course on the economics of gambling, acknowledged a touch of hypocrisy in the situation, but also recognized the evolving attitudes towards gambling in sports. This shift was fast-tracked following the Supreme Court's 2018 decision to grant states the right to legalize sports betting. Official partnerships now exist between NFL and major betting sites like Caesars, FanDuel, and DraftKings, thereby legitimizing their relationship. And while the NFL asserts it doesn't take a cut from betting profits, it's apparent that the league is reaping benefits from the boom in advertising revenue brought about by the legalized gambling industry. And the revenue doesn't end there. Viewers who've placed bets are less likely to switch channels during a game, leading to increased user engagement. The American Gaming Association estimates that 68 million Americans, averaging $340 per person, will bet $23 billion on the Super Bowl, marking an impressive 44% increase from last year. This growing trend not only expands NFL's audience, but also bolsters viewership amidst keen competition from other networks and streaming services. However, there are also concerns beyond the financial implications of sports betting. As Professor Emeritus of Economics at Smith College Andrew Zimbalist pointed out, the focus on gambling could affect the emotional bond audiences have traditionally formed with sports, potentially weakening one of sports' most significant cultural contributions, bringing people together in shared enthusiasm. Thus, while change seems inevitable and there's apparent monetary gain, the question remains, by embracing gambling, could the NFL be risking losing something far more fundamental about the nature of sports? Welcome back. We have an interesting story from across the pond, where one of the UK's oldest cathedrals has stirred both delight and controversy with a new kind of event. Canterbury Cathedral, known as a prominent beacon of the Christian faith, hosted two 90s-themed silent discos this past week. Reporting on this unique event is our correspondent, Greg Spear. Greg, can you tell us more about what happened?
Absolutely, Ruth. Thousands of people found themselves dancing to 90s music last Thursday at an event held in the historic Canterbury Cathedral. The cathedral was transformed into a discotheque, complete with colorful lights, glow sticks, and even headphones that played music directly into the ears of participants.
Quite a shift from the cathedral's usual atmosphere, wouldn't you say, Greg?
Yes, Ruth, it certainly is. The cathedral, founded in 597 CE, has always been a crucial part of Britain's religious landscape, housing the Archbishop of Canterbury.
It seems the event was a hit.
It certainly was, Ruth. The cathedral reported an overwhelmingly positive response and even boasted about the fantastic atmosphere on their social media platforms. The tickets, all 3,000 of them, sold out within hours. Another disco is already scheduled to take place.
But there was some backlash too, right?
Indeed, Ruth. Some Christians were not thrilled at the idea of a disco taking place within the sacred walls of the church. Protests took place outside the cathedral during the initial disco, and an online petition has garnered more than 1,700 signatures, calling for the Archbishop of Canterbury to put an end to the discos, stating they portray Christians as not taking their faith seriously.
Interesting. So, how has the cathedral responded?
The Dean of Canterbury Cathedral, the Very Reverend Dr. David Monteith, said that cathedrals have always been a part of community life, and it's all about people discovering the place anew. The event was planned to be respectful and appropriate to the cathedral. The disco's organizer, Silent Discos in Incredible Places, who has organized similar events in many other British cathedrals, echoed these sentiments.
Well, it's certainly a story that strikes a chord on both sides. Thank you, Greg, for the comprehensive report. Keep an eye on this developing story. We turn now to West Africa, where the regional bloc, ECOWAS, has made a plea to nations led by military juntas. Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali have recently announced their decisions to quit this political and economic alliance. This move followed pressure from ECOWAS to restore constitutional order after a series of coups. Reporter Greg Spear has more details on this story. Greg, what can you tell us about this development?
Ruth, the departure of these three countries threatens to further weaken ECOWAS, a body that has been struggling to halt a trend of decreased democracy in West Africa since a military takeover in Mali in 2020. The chairman of the ECOWAS Council, Youssouf Maitama Tugger, warned that this move could bring more hardship to the citizens of these three nations.
And how is ECOWAS reacting to these nations' insults to quit the bloc?
ECOWAS plans to redouble its diplomatic efforts towards dialogue and reconciliation. ECOWAS Commission President Omar Touré described the junta's decision to withdraw as both hasty and defiant of the bloc's withdrawal rules. Though he didn't specify which rules were violated, it should be noted that member states intending to leave are supposed to give written one-year notice, a rule seemingly ignored by the juntas.
Greg, what are the potential consequences should these countries proceed with departure?
Their exit without delay could result in a messy disentanglement from the region's trade flows and services, worth nearly $150 billion a year. There are also concerns for the millions of citizens from these nations settled in neighboring states, as the bloc currently allows visa-free travel and work rights. The abrupt exit will disrupt these arrangements. There's also the issue of punitive sanctions, such as border closures, which the countries claim were excessively imposed by ECOWAS in wake of the coups.
And briefly, Greg, what about the situation in Senegal?
Senegal's unprecedented postponement of a presidential vote is also causing concerns in the region. ECOWAS is addressing this matter, although ECOWAS Touré considers this delay a threat to regional peace and stability. However, what was discussed privately on this matter remains unknown, Ruth.
Thank you, Greg. It's a complex scenario, with far-reaching implications, not just for these nations, but also for the entire region. We will continue to follow developments as they unfold. We begin today with a culmination of Prince Harry's phone hacking case against the Mirror Group newspapers, or MGN. MGN, the publisher of the UK tabloid, the Daily Mirror, will pay Prince Harry a substantial payout, as made official at the High Court in London. The declaration came from Prince Harry's lawyer, David Sherborne, who also announced that MGN would cover the Duke of Sussex's legal costs. This settlement comes after a December ruling, in which the High Court determined that Prince Harry was indeed the victim of phone hacking and other forms of unlawful information gathering by MGN. The court ordered the payment of £140, $600, equivalent to approximately $177,000, in damages to the prince. The prince submitted 33 articles for examination, and the court found that 15 stories published by MGN were based on illegally obtained information. An additional 115 articles were part of his claim, but a settlement between both parties has been reached. Taking his stand against illicit practices in media, Prince Harry criticized the former editor of The Mirror, Piers Morgan, highlighting his refusal to accept the court's judgments. Morgan has denied involvement or knowledge of such activities spanning his editorship between 1995 and 2004. Prince Harry made this case the centerpiece of his campaign for stricter media regulations, following his split from the UK royal family in 2020. He affirmed his continued efforts in driving positive change, as he seeks to hold MGN accountable for their actions over roughly a 15-year period. That's it for this story. We will keep you updated with any further developments in Prince Harry's campaign for fairer media practices. In an unexpected turn of events, a Florida construction crew unearthed a piece of World War II-era history this week. As they dug into their work on the site for the forthcoming Wilton Simpson Technical College near Brooksville Tampa Bay Regional Airport, they discovered an M65 ordnance, a type of bomb used during the war. Due to the rust and decay of the antique weapon, Hernando County Sheriff Al Ninhuez noted that it isn't immediately clear whether the bomb is live or inert. However, bomb experts from Citrus County and MacDill have evaluated the situation and have confirmed the bomb to be inert. Insights point towards the possibility of the bomb being a relic from the Brooksville Army Airfield, a former training ground for pilots and bomb squadrons during the war, which started its operations back in 1942. This find reaffirms the extensive history of our county and brings a fresh perspective on the remnants of our past that continue to surface in the present. In an election year fraught with concerns about President Joe Biden's age and fitness for office, Special Counsel Robert Hur's report marks a legal triumph and a political hurdle. Though the report clears Biden of mishandling classified documents, it relays accusations of Biden's forgetfulness, leading to a public display of indignation from the president, particularly concerning an allegation he failed to remember the date of his son's death. Biden's team consistently describe him as sharp and tireless, and denounce the report convened by former Trump Justice Department official Hur as inaccurate, irrelevant, and ageist. They emphasize Biden's mastery of complex geopolitical situations and reject the claims about Biden's memory as retroactive and misconstrued. Critics, however, are expected to use the report to fuel concerns about Biden's mental acuity, especially given recent verbal slip-ups. Meanwhile, Biden himself remains defiant, asserting his competence and denouncing the report's extraneous commentary. His team, hoping to counter concerns about his fitness, plans to increase his public appearances. Hur's report, while creating an uproar, has reiterated a key difference between Trump and Biden in handling classified material, further stirring the political cauldron. This controversy leaves the question of the president's mental fitness hanging precariously in the balance of public opinion leading into the election year. We turn our attention now to Pakistan, where the general election vote count has unexpectedly hit a snag. Millions have cast their vote in a contentious race between old political dynasties, while the country's charismatic former leader remains behind bars. With no final result more than 24 hours after polls closed, tension is building.
That's right, Ruth. Despite the delay, early counts suggest that independent candidates are leading, with 62 out of 156 seats counted so far. Interestingly, the majority of these leaders are affiliated with the party of jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, or PTI.
Greg, can we speak a little more about Imran Khan?
Of course. Former cricket star Khan is currently imprisoned on multiple charges and is banned from contesting the vote. This has dealt a significant blow to PTI, as they are also prohibited from using their recognizable cricket bat symbol on ballots.
And yet, despite these troubles, the party has accused authorities of manipulating results and delaying their announcement. I believe the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan shares these concerns?
Yes, the commission stated the lack of transparency surrounding this delay was deeply concerning and has questioned whether these delays could be justified. Some analysts have even gone as far as calling this the least credible vote in Pakistan's post-independence history.
And all this turmoil takes place amid economic instability and frequent militant attacks. There was even an internet shutdown, is that correct?
Yes, Ruth. Mobile internet services were suspended for over 12 hours by the Interior Ministry, claiming it was necessary for security, which has sparked criticism from local activists and international bodies such as Amnesty International and the Committee to Protect Journalists.
Such a difficult backdrop. This must be contributing to the tight race between Khan's longtime rival Nawaz Sharif and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari?
Absolutely. Sharif, a seasoned politician, is seeking a historic fourth term after years in self-exile following a prison sentence for corruption. Bhutto Zardari, meanwhile, is trying to re-establish his Pakistan People's Party as a political force. This tense competition, the allegations of vote manipulation, and the uncertainty around the final count have created a lot of unrest.
Truly a fraught situation. Greg Spear, thank you for shedding light on this challenging election. Let's hope the process concludes swiftly and fairly. Back to you in the studio. In an unconventional twist on weigh-in procedures at airports, European airline Finnair is volitionally asking passengers to weigh themselves prior to boarding. This procedure is part of a project at its Helsinki airport hub, meant to enhance the precision of weight estimates for aircrafts just before takeoff. Conducted with anonymity, both passengers and their carry-on luggage are weighed, but without any link to their individual reservations or passenger data. The goal here, as Finnair's Senior Vice President of Communications, Päivi Tokvist explains, is to accumulate data about the average weight of passengers and their luggage. This data aids in calculating aircraft balance and performance metrics, key aspects securing flight safety. Over 800 volunteers have participated in the trial since its launch. Finnair anticipates a total of 1,200 passengers will partake in this initiative for the winter season, and an increased number for the summer season. Seasons, in this case, play a substantial role, since passengers typically don heavier outerwear during Finland's chilly winters. The winter weigh-ins are set to conclude in February, followed by summer readings between April and May. Upon averaging out the weights, Finnair will send the data for verification to the Finnish Transport and Communications Agency, further delving into airline safety measures. This practice, although unique, isn't the first of its kind. Companies including Korean Air and Air New Zealand conducted similar weight surveys previously. Finnair, in fact, has utilized its own measurements in this domain since 2018, and is required to update this every 5 years. Amidst concerns of breached privacy, Satu Maneka, Finnair's head of ground processes, clarified that the weight data collected bear no link to the customer's personal data, underscoring the methodology as centered on enhancing flight safety calculations. Coming up on Soundly Human, ABC has announced some exciting news for fans of its long-running medical drama, Grey's Anatomy. As it prepares for an iconic 20th season, the show will welcome back Jessica Capshaw, who will reprise her role as the fan favorite, Dr. Arizona Robbins. Capshaw's character, a pediatric surgeon, previously featured in over 220 episodes, becoming a central figure of the series before her departure in 2018. Another returning character is Dr. Nico Kim, portrayed by Alex Landy, who appeared in over 40 episodes between 2018 and 2022. Meanwhile, Natalie Morales, known from Dead to Me, Parks and Recreation, and No Hard Feelings, is set to join the cast as pediatric surgeon Monica Beltran. The return of Capshaw without her one-time partner, Sarah Ramirez, promises to generate speculation about the status of their characters' much-beloved relationship. Mark your calendars, the storied series Grey's Anatomy will make its landmark return on Thursday, March 14th, on ABC, and will be available for streaming the next day on Hulu. We are now turning to a developing story involving social media giant TikTok. We have just learned that Katie Puris, a former senior executive at the company, has filed a lawsuit alleging age and gender discrimination during her 3 years working there. She also claims that after reporting an incident of sexual harassment at a work event, the company responded inadequately. Greg Spear has been following this story and brings us the details. Greg?
Yes, Ruth. The allegations laid out by Puris in her complaint are certainly concerning. She claims that despite her extensive experience, she was faced with uneven expectations, faced retaliation after raising concerns, and was ultimately pushed out of the company in fall 2022. This discrimination, she alleges, was due to both her age and gender.
That's quite troubling. Can you tell us more about Puris's experience within the company?
Absolutely. Puris's career was marked by achievements. She served as TikTok's head of global brand and creative in the company's New York office after holding senior roles at Facebook and Google. Her work on an ad campaign in TikTok was even lauded by Adweek in 2021. However, Puris alleges that she was treated differently because she lacked the docility and meekness required of female employees. She also claims the company preferred younger, less experienced employees, believing them to be more innovative.
That's hard to hear, especially considering the caliber of talent she's demonstrated. Was there also a dispute over workload and mental health concerns?
Yes, indeed. According to the complaint, Puris raised concerns about her team's extreme workload and its impact on mental health to human resources, only to be told that taking leave would affect her compensation. Puris contends that this is not just about her, but that at least 5 members on her team have taken medical leave due to the severe stress and pressure.
What about her claims of being pressured to unjustly rate employees?
Puris alleges that she was pressured to give certain employees lower performance ratings, even when they didn't deserve them, in order to justify terminations. She claims that TikTok minimized her role following her complaints, excluding her from important decisions concerning her team.
And the alleged incident of sexual harassment?
While at a work dinner, Puris claims she was sexually harassed by an employee from one of TikTok's business partners. She alleges that it took TikTok's ethics team nearly a week to respond, and over a month to confirm the individual was removed from the TikTok account.
This lawsuit seems to again put TikTok and its parent company, ByteDance, under scrutiny. Does this add to their ongoing controversies?
Absolutely. It appears to raise fresh questions about the influence of TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, particularly following concerns aired at a Senate hearing last month. Interestingly, Puris alleges that despite TikTok's CEO Shu Chu taking over in May 2021, key departmental control still remained with ByteDance leadership.
Greg, we'll definitely keep an eye on this story as it develops. Thank you for the comprehensive report. Regarding TikTok, they reportedly had not responded to a request for comment at this time. We're closely following the final preparations of the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers as they gear up for the Super Bowl. The anticipation is high, and the hard work has been intense. But with the immense pressure of game preparations, do players take the time to appreciate the moment? We have reporter Greg Spear with more on this. Greg?
That's right, Ruth. It's been an invigorating journey for these players, especially Niners quarterback Brock Purdy, who underlines the fine balance between proper preparation and pausing to appreciate the moment. Despite the severity of stage and circumstance, Purdy points out the importance of remembering what led him here. He emphasizes that it's not just about meticulous preparation, but also the joy of being part of the Super Bowl, something he, like countless others, dreamed of as a child.
Purdy, famously remembered for being the last pick of the 2022 NFL Draft, has certainly come a long way.
Indeed, Ruth. Once named Mr. Irrelevant, the 24-year-old has impressed everyone with his excellent performance this season. His amazing leadership on the field led the team to a historic comeback in the NFC Championship game against the Detroit Lions, following a 17-point deficit. And despite not being initially talked about earlier this season, he has shown critics he was more than capable and has become one of the faces of the league.
And what's Coach Shanahan's take on all of this?
San Francisco's head coach Kyle Shanahan has worked to develop a strong offense around Purdy. NFL legend Tom Brady even praised the young quarterback's performance. But, when asked about his own Super Bowl legacy, Shanahan prefers to step back and focus on the task at hand, emphasizing a concentration on winning the games, not contemplating legacies while still in the heat of the battle.
Thank you, Greg. A captivating balance of relentless hard work and appreciating the thrill of the moment. We'll continue to follow this exciting build-up to the Super Bowl. Back to you, Greg, as the story develops.
Will do, Ruth. As the last page of preparations gets turned over, the focus now shifts to the Super Bowl showdown.
Welcome to Soundly Human Live on YouTube. This is Ruth Sterling with an update on a major Supreme Court hearing that took place yesterday, and its potential widespread implications for American elections. The courtroom was buzzing as Chief Justice John Roberts and the other justices convened over a critical dispute regarding election laws and the 14th Amendment. Central to their discussion was the reversal of a Colorado ruling, one that stopped Donald Trump from appearing on the ballot due to the controversial invocation of the 14th Amendment's Section 3. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, for those unfamiliar, restricts people who have engaged in insurrection or rebellion from holding federal office. The original ruling by the Colorado Supreme Court argued that Trump's involvement in the events of January 6, 2021, classified him as an insurrectionist, thereby disqualifying him from future ballots. However, with the Supreme Court review, this position appears likely to be overruled. As indicated by the dialogue in the courtroom, justices unified around their concern for the potential pitfalls of disqualifying a candidate from the ballot, and the consequential political instability that could ensue. They expressed apprehension over what Chief Justice Roberts described as the plain consequences of upholding Colorado's decision. Trump's lawyer, Jonathan Mitchell, argued that the 14th Amendment's original terms do not classify a president as an officer, and that Section 3 enforcement requires related congressional legislation. A revealing moment came when Justice Elena Kagan asked why a single state should decide who gets to be President of the United States, reinforcing the sense of unease about the implications of the Colorado decision. Now, the justices must agree on a legal foundation for their decision to either uphold or overrule the Colorado verdict. This landmark case, reminiscent of the high-stakes dispute in Bush v. Gore, could have the potential to drastically change future elections, depending on the interpretation of the 14th Amendment. As the justices prepare to vote in private in the coming days, they are expected to prioritize clear direction and minimal confusion in their ruling. While the finer details of the ruling are yet to be articulated, it seems likely that the question of Trump's insurrection involvement will not play a significant part in the final decision. This Supreme Court hearing highlights the critical intersection of law and politics, and its far-reaching impact on the democratic process in the United States. We'll be here reporting the key updates as this case unfolds, so stay tuned for more information, right here on Soundly Human. In a surprising turn from vaping, Americans are now gravitating towards ZYN, a tobacco-free nicotine pouch offering that has seen remarkable sales growth over the past year. According to Philip Morris International, they witnessed a 62% surge in shipments of ZYN in 2023, with around 350 million cans of the product shipped globally. Despite not being an exact measure of demand, these shipments generally indicate sales trends. Anticipating further growth this year, Philip Morris aims to boost the shipment to over 520 million cans, reinforcing its yearly forecast. ZYN's popularity, especially among the Gen Z audience, has been paramount in this anticipated growth. The nicotine pouch targets adults aged 21 and up, who are already nicotine users. Philip Morris assures adherence to legalities and even exceeds regulatory requirements by implementing age gates across digital channels and not involving social media influencers. However, as with other nicotine products, concerns about the addictive nature of nicotine and its potential harm to the developing brains of young people have been raised. ZYN, like Juul, might face regulatory challenges, especially from the U.S. government. Last month, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called for an FTC and FDA investigation of ZYN's marketing strategies targeted towards youth. In response, Philip Morris reiterated that ZYN's marketing was designed strictly for customers aged 21 and above, only incorporating individuals aged 35 and older in their promotions. Even though ZYN's growth is presently phenomenal, Philip Morris shares saw a 2% dip due to a reduced demand for cigarettes. As the primary consumer demographics change their preferences, Big Tobacco is gradually shifting from cigarettes to smokeless alternatives like vapes or heat sticks. Valuing this transformation, Philip Morris acquired ZYN producer Swedish Match in 2022 to anchor its turn towards more smoke-free products. According to the CEO, Jacek Olczak, the company's revenues from newer products have risen to 40%, with IQOS heated tobacco products taking the lead over traditional Marlboro revenues. As ZYN picks speed, Philip Morris plans to invest about $1 billion this year to enhance U.S. production to meet demand. In an unexpected turn of events, former President Donald Trump has seen a surge in his campaign expressions in light of recent happenings. The special counsel's report about the mishandling of classified documents has heaped concerns over President Joe Biden's age and memory, bolstering Trump's political foothold. This news broke as Trump swept through the Nevada and U.S. Virgin Island caucuses, making his journey towards the Republican nomination seem almost inevitable. Notably, the Supreme Court also expressed doubts over whether Colorado could portray the former president as an insurrectionist and bar him from their ballots. In the special counsel's conclusion that Biden will not face prosecution, there appears to be an underlying insinuation questioning the president's fitness for office. These concerns about Biden's memory and age have provided fertile ground for the Republicans' opposition, who have swiftly released joint messages capitalizing on this revelation. Despite Biden's reassurances about his memory and his defense of his mental competency, public speculation about his fitness for office is likely to continue. However, it's worth noting that despite the special counsel's debatable assessment of Biden, the report emphasized that Biden should not face prosecution for the alleged mishandling of classified documents. The lack of legal action fuels Trump's narrative of an unequal justice system, but the unflattering description of Biden in the report may indicate otherwise. The documents in question largely include handwritten notes by Biden from his tenure as vice president, related to Afghanistan policy. Meanwhile, Trump is holding a commanding position in the primary race following his victories in Nevada and U.S. Virgin Islands. Despite the existence of other nominees, such as former South Carolina Governor Haley, Trump's success seems indomitable. Critical court decisions could heavily influence both Trump's standing in the race and the perception of his past actions. Yet, for now, Trump's political future seems sturdy. ABC is set to brighten up fall primetime television with yet another historic spin-off series, The Golden Bachelorette. Coming off the success of its predecessor, The Golden Bachelor, the premier senior citizen dating show, the network announced its new show over the weekend at the Television Critics Association conference in Pasadena, California. Last year's The Golden Bachelor introduced viewers to Jerry Turner, a charismatic 72-year-old grandfather looking for love, and ended with a heartwarming engagement and televised wedding to contestant Teresa Nist. Echoing that success, ABC plans to follow a yet-to-be-announced leading lady in her golden years, ready for a second chance at love in the limelight. Further details regarding the series and the cast are anticipated to be released shortly. The Golden Bachelorette joins a long line of crowd-pleasing Bachelor spin-offs, including Bachelorette, Bachelor Pad, and Bachelor in Paradise, since the franchise's initial launch in 2002. As this announcement broadens the franchise's reach, viewers are currently enjoying the 28th season of The Bachelor, featuring leading man Joey Grossaday. Across to our reporter on the ground, Greg Spear, as we continue to examine America's ongoing immigration crisis over on the southern border. A lot of mixed messaging between the Democratic and Republican parties. What's your take on this situation?
Ruth, there's quite a complication here. Let's start with the fact that both parties have previously acknowledged the critical need to fix America's broken asylum system. And efforts were made by the Biden administration and Senate Democrats to address the crisis along the lines Republicans had been advocating for, only to find Republicans have shifted their stance.
So the Republicans now believe change isn't needed?
Not just that, Ruth. They are now arguing that the president can use executive authority to rectify the situation, a stance promoted not only by influential political figures but even entrepreneurs like Elon Musk. This is indeed a radical departure from their position in 2019.
And what's the reaction from the Democrats?
The about-face of the Republican Party has actually led to genuine surprise. For instance, Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, a prime negotiator of the Senate bill from the Republican side, commented in amazement. A year ago they said, "We need a change in the law." Now the conversation is, "Just kidding, we don't need a change in the law."
Could the president use executive authority to solve this?
It's not that simple, Ruth. The former president, Donald Trump, attempted to invoke executive authority during his tenure, only to find it ineffective or blocked by courts. Even if President Biden attempted to invoke it today, courts would likely rule that there is no present public health emergency warranting such measures.
A major challenge indeed.
Absolutely, Ruth. And just for context, this isn't the same situation as what many remember from the 90s and 2000s. Today, many cross the border and apply for asylum, entering the country and going through an adjudication process that lasts roughly 5 to 7 years.
That is a considerably long period.
True, Ruth. And within that time, many blend into society and start working. As David Frum put it on your show recently, the president is enforcing the laws. The problem is that the laws need to change, and that's where we stand right now.
A true conundrum. What could be the potential fix?
One very viable fix came from the Senate in the form of a bill. A funded increase in staff for the system, quicker determinations about people's statuses to lessen the extensive adjudication period, and also an emergency provision. It also proposed higher standards to determine asylum qualifications. The point of contention is majorly around the new twists from the Republicans, barring the legislative changes.
The implications for the country?
Well, Ruth, it's clear we need a solution. If the crisis exacerbates, it will certainly serve no one politically. A majority of Western countries are already working to adjust their immigration issues. It's crucial that, instead of fanning the flames of the crisis, America looks towards implementing a solution.
In a newly released statement by the International Skating Union, or ISU, a detailed explanation was given regarding the non-promotion of Canada to a bronze medal position in the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics figure skating team event. This follows the suspension of Russian skater Kamila Valieva due to an anti-doping rule violation. Initially, due to Valieva's suspension, the teams reordered, placing the US, Japan, and the Russian Olympic Committee as the winners respectively. Canada retained its fourth position, trailing the Russian Olympic Committee by a single point. This sparked disagreement from Skate Canada and the Canadian Olympic Committee, questioning the methods used to determine the order and the application of relevant rules. In their new statement, the ISU defended its actions, noting that they had correctly implemented the rules. The ISU further indicated that Rule 353, Paragraph 4 as cited by Skate Canada, was not applicable in the case. The ISU claimed that the reallocation of points could negatively impact relative team ranking, affecting other participating teams. The ISU plans to clarify its rules and regulations in the light of this controversy, aiming to improve the efficiency in handling similar cases in the future. The ISU's response on the re-ranking of teams, which has been a hotly debated topic within the figure skating community and the media, suggests the gravity it assigns to the matter. Yet the poser remains on how the ISU arrived at the recalculated totals, since the total points didn't rise for the US, Japan, or Canada. If an update had been made, Canada would have triumphed over the Russian Olympic Committee by a point. CNN awaits a reaction from the Canadian Olympic Committee on this matter.
Soundly Human News returns in 60 seconds.
Stay with me. 口癖を言いながら二人の時を抱いてまだ忘れず大事にしていた恋と愛とは違うものだよとゆべ言われたそんな気もするわ二度目の冬が来て離れていた
Soundly Humans 24/7 news coverage returns right now.
いつもそこにあなたを
In an exciting departure from his usual New York stomping grounds, Saturday Night Live comedian and host of its Weekend Update segment, Colin Yost, will be streaming live from Washington, D.C., as the entertainer at this year's White House Correspondents' Dinner, taking place on the last Saturday of April. Selected by the White House Correspondents Association, WHCA, and greeted with enthusiasm by their president, Kelly O'Donnell, notable NBC News senior White House correspondent. This marks yet another impressive achievement in Colin Yost's blossoming career. His prior accolades include 5 Writers Guild Awards and 2 Peabody Awards, as well as 14 Emmy Award nominations. Known for his witty commentary and razor-sharp insights into the political realm, Colin is expected to bring a hefty dose of levity to the DC-based event, regardless of one's political affiliations. Historically, the White House Correspondents' Dinner has housed a myriad of iconic entertainers, from Trevor Noah to Stephen Colbert and Michelle Wolf. Despite controversy surrounding Wolf's comedic address and a brief pivot to non-comedian headliners, the praiseworthy tradition of featuring comedians has been carried forward, with Roy Wood Jr. taking the mantle last year. Renowned as a fundraiser that provides scholarships for aspiring journalists, the White House Correspondents' Dinner ensures a bright future in journalism, while also recognizing the power of comedy in shaping public discourse. Expect a dose of Colin Yost's brand of smarts and satire at that event. Stay tuned for more updates. Tens of millions of us tune into the television every year to watch the Super Bowl. But what is the actual experience like for those few who manage to snag a ticket to the grand spectacle? We have our reporter, Greg Spear, who has been speaking to a few of those lucky or perhaps not so lucky individuals. Greg, what can you tell us about the Super Bowl, beyond the TV experience?
Well, Ruth, attending the Super Bowl in person is a mix of exhilaration, anxiety, and, let's put it honestly, steep expenses. Average ticket prices are close to the eye-watering figure of $10,000. Yet, the allure of the in-person experience remains tantalizing for many fans. They fantasize about the arena's electric atmosphere and the glitz and glamour of the halftime show.
So, when they get there, does the reality match their fantasies?
It's a rather mixed bag, actually. Take Mike Quackenbush, for instance. Having attended 9 Super Bowls, he believes only about half of the attendees are voracious fans, while the other half is more interested in the spectacle than the actual game.
So, they might have their eyes on the private parties more than the pitch?
Precisely, Ruth. In Quackenbush's view, those leading up to the game parties are where the real fun is. Yet, he argues, it's not worth the spend for a ticket unless your home team is playing. A sentiment echoed by Chelsea Bear, a first-time attendee at the 2021 Super Bowl. For her, the experience was unique due to the pandemic-induced stand-in of cardboard fans. But attending the game with her sister made it worthwhile.
But not everyone walks away with a smile on their face, do they?
That's correct, Ruth. San Francisco-based investor Judy Abad had high expectations from her Super Bowl visit. However, she was disappointed by the overbearing corporate atmosphere and the event's see-and-be-seen mentality. For Abad, the appeal of a Super Bowl visit quickly wore off.
And what about those lifelong fans who follow their team through thick and thin?
Well, for Kansas City Chiefs fan Mike Ryan, the possibility of seeing his team win in person was a dream come true. It was a roller coaster of emotions, as Ryan described the experience as miserable until the last few minutes when his team pulled off a turnaround victory. His takeaway? It was an experience that's unforgettable but not always fun. So, in essence, Ruth, the in-person Super Bowl experience can be thrilling, exhausting, and expensive all at the same time.
A fascinating insight into an event that for many remains a dream. Thank you, Greg, for that insightful report. You're tuned in to Soundly Human. I'm Ruth Sterling. We now move our focus to the U.S. Senate, where a foreign aid bill worth a staggering $95.3 billion is under evaluation. There are several obstacles this bill must navigate, with its passage being meticulously impeded by GOP Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who favors the invocation of complex chamber rules to slow down the process. The Senate, nonetheless, endorsed a vital 60-vote threshold, an encouraging sign that this bill could become law soon. Despite Senator Rand's fervent call for the Senate to question why they think the border of Ukraine is more important than the U.S. border, the process moves forward, albeit at a somewhat languid pace. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called on his Republican colleagues to expedite the process by putting forth reasonable amendments. In light of these negotiations, lawmakers are forging ahead with careful consideration of the foreign aid bill. However, stitch points are evident as Republicans express divided standpoints over the bill, triggering demands for amendments that include measures related to immigration and border policy. The foreign aid deal, if passed, will see billions of dollars being redirected for Ukraine and Israel's bolstering. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell staunchly defended the foreign aid bill, highlighting that the legislation will not only benefit international alliances, but will predominantly serve as an investment in America, contributing around 75% of the total package to domestic advancements. That's all for now. Remember to stay tuned to Soundly Human as we continue to explore this intriguing intersection of domestic and international policy. Will the mettle of diplomacy win, and will shifting alliances blend to form a well-rounded policy? Only time will tell. In a recent interview with CNN senior sports analyst Darren Lewis, Liverpool's rising star Trent Alexander-Arnold has asserted his vision to win the quadruple this season. With Liverpool currently leading the English Premier League and battling out on 3 additional fronts, he indicated his dedication to clinching every possible trophy. It's just weeks away from grabbing the first opportunity of their quadruple dream, with a Carabao Cup final against Chelsea on February 25th. Alexander-Arnold confidently stated that despite a 50-50 chance in the cup, they would back themselves against any team in the world. As Liverpool faces stiff competition from title rivals Arsenal and Manchester City, Alexander-Arnold acknowledged the increasing pressure and admitted the chances of winning every game till season end is improbable. Yet, he voiced the spirit of Liverpool's sporting mantra, noting that every single game is a must-win, and even a draw feels like a loss. Alexander-Arnold also shared his thoughts on Liverpool's outgoing manager, Jurgen Klopp, and the importance of giving him a victorious send-off. He commended Klopp's impact on the club, the city, and echoed that the manager's values harmonized with those of the team and the city. Even a local rival team's fans felt dispirited about his leaving, recognizing Klopp as a figure bigger than football. Finally, the popular defender emphasized the importance of consistency, results, and correct mentality in determining the destiny of the league, demonstrating an unwavering faith in Liverpool's capabilities to triumph. In recent developments surrounding the Georgia election racketeering case, a co-defendant of former President Donald Trump has accused Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade of allegedly hiding the details about their personal relationship. Mike Roman, through his defense attorney, Ashley Merchant, intends to present a witness to counter Wade and Willis's claim that their relationship began after Wade was appointed in late 2021 to the case against Trump and his allies. The key witness here is Terrence Bradley, Wade's former law partner and friend, who also represented him in his divorce. Bradley evidently has knowledge that the personal relationship between Wade and Willis began before Willis took the oath as the DA for Fulton County, Georgia, in January 2021. The defense alleges that Willis and Wade hid their relationship and used public funds for personal benefit, including receipts for a cruise taken after Wade was hired as the special prosecutor in 2022. Willis is vigorously fighting these allegations as well as calls to disqualify her office from the prosecution. The case continues to unfold with a hearing scheduled for February 15. As this story develops, it raises significant questions about conflict of interest and the implications for the ongoing prosecution. In our entertainment news, The Office, a beloved sitcom that concluded in 2013, after 9 long and humorous seasons, tends to spark a certain level of nostalgia among its fans. However, actress Dakota Johnson, in a recent interview on Late Night with Seth Meyers, humorously claimed the filming experience for the finale was, honestly, the worst time of my life. Expecting to feature for only half a day, Johnson found herself on set for 2 weeks, in the background of scenes doing things as mundane as faxing. As onlookers, we remember the enjoyable antics and office camaraderie. But Johnson recollected a different atmosphere, filled with sadness at the show's termination, and strange dynamics created through a decade-long run. In her words, "No one wanted to talk to me." Meyers lightened the tone, joking about Johnson's believable faxing, a poignant reminder of the many roles that contribute to our favorite shows. Back to you. Turning our attention to the exciting world of sports, the Super Bowl is awaiting a superstar of a different sort. Pop icon Taylor Swift's trip to the highly anticipated game is making waves. She's shifting from her Saturday night concert in Tokyo straight to the Sin City for Sunday's clash, thanks to private jet convenience. However, Swift isn't the only one banking on this luxury. Greg Spear on the field. How's the vibe in Vegas, and what's the unusual record this Super Bowl could set?
It's electrifying, Ruth, and also bustling with excitement. This Super Bowl is expected to break records not just on the field, but in the air too. Clark County anticipates over 1,000 private jets to descend on Vegas, setting a new yardstick in private aviation for big sports events. Super Bowl usually sees the highest U.S. private jet activity annually, so it barely comes as a surprise.
Indeed, affluent fans with deep pockets often choose private jets for convenience. How is Vegas dealing with this influx of high-end travelers?
The spectacle is happening to the delight of Las Vegas, a hotspot for high rollers. The city has 4 airports to manage this air traffic bonanza: the commercial Harry Reid International Airport and 3 private jet airports, including North Las Vegas, Henderson Executive Airport, and Boulder City. But here's the tricky part. These airports can only accommodate around 500 jets, meaning many private planes will have to perform drop-and-go operations due to limited parking and ramp space.
Apart from the logistical challenges, what are the environmental implications of this private jet frenzy?
Therein lies a crucial point. The spotlight on this airborne luxury underscores its environmental impact. Jet travel contributes significantly to carbon emissions, with private jets consuming 10 times more fuel per passenger mile than their commercial counterparts. As the jet-setter population expands, these emissions are unlikely to wane.
Right. It seems private jet travel remains robust, even amidst growing environmental concerns. Greg, how is the administration managing this grand aviation spectacle?
The FAA, along with the NFL, is overseeing this procession, ensuring secure and efficient aircraft operations. They've worked in tandem with law enforcement and the aviation community to make it happen. Also interesting to note, all landing slots have been fully booked for months, so coordination is key here.
Quite the undertaking. Last can't help but ask, will Taylor Swift's private jet get a landing slot?
Well, that's on the cards, Ruth. It's difficult to imagine that Swift's jet will face any landing hurdles. The pop star's flight plan, without doubt, has thrown a spotlight on private aviation and its impact on climate change, making her trip one of many controversial touchpoints in this high-stakes event. Back to you.
Thank you, Greg, for that insightful report. That's the buzz around the Super Bowl 58. More to follow on this riveting blend of music, sports, and aviation. Stay with us. In news out of Dallas today, 24-year-old Davian Irvin, the man investigators believe is linked to a series of peculiar incidents at the Dallas Zoo, including the alleged snatch of 2 tamarin monkeys, has been indicted on felony burglary charges. Greg, what can you tell us about this case?
That's right, Ruth. Davian Irvin was indicted Tuesday on 2 counts of burglary to a building, according to court records. These charges trace back to late January's tamarin theft and the mysterious disappearance of a clouded leopard in mid-January.
I understand Irvin is facing more than just the burglary charges. What else can you tell us?
Indeed, Irvin is dealing with 6 additional misdemeanor counts of non-livestock animal cruelty concerning the tamarin monkeys. He was arrested just days after the alleged theft, and, interestingly enough, the monkeys were later located, unharmed, in the closet of a local Dallas area home.
That's quite the hideout. And what about the leopard?
That's an interesting subplot, Ruth. According to arrest warrant affidavits, Irvin allegedly entered and cut the fence of the leopard's enclosure. Under his own admission, he petted the enclosed leopard, Nova, but was unable to capture the animal due to its sprightly vigor.
Quite a curious tale.
Absolutely, Ruth. And it doesn't end there. These incidents fit into a larger pattern of dubious events at the zoo, where an increase in cuts to monkey enclosures was observed, and unusually, one of the zoo's vultures died.
What actions has the zoo taken in light of these occurrences?
Dallas Zoo has ramped up its security measures, including installing additional cameras and increasing patrols and overnight staff, in hopes to prevent such peculiarities from occurring in the future.
Welcome to the news. CBS has once again seized the massive platform of the Super Bowl to launch a new series titled Tracker, featuring the popularity of This Is Us star Justin Hartley. The show follows a similar pattern laid out by The Equalizer, focusing on a central character who aids desperate individuals, albeit with a mercenary approach. Hartley's character, Coulter Shaw, trawls the country in a well-equipped recreational vehicle, locating missing persons for a price. The series weaves in levity via Hartley's regular injuries that serve as context for displaying his impressive physique, a nod to his diligent personal training. Drawing from the novel The Never Game, the show adopts a breezy procedural quality, reminiscent of the modern adaptation of iconic The Rockford Files. The key dynamic to note in Tracker is the characters' remote interaction via phone with team members Velma and Teddy, played by Abby McEnany and Robin Weigert, respectively. Coulter's support circle is enriched by the brilliant tech guru played by Eric Grays, and an astute attorney played by Fiona Renee, also a past flame. In the midst of old-fashioned series elements, the one unique twist lies in Coulter's complicated family backstory, teasing out familial tension and secrets with his survivalist father, played by Lee Tergesen. The primary draw of the series, however, centers on Hartley, who has committed to the show not only as its leading star, but also a producer. With CBS choosing to slot this series following the widely viewed Super Bowl, only time will tell if Tracker will enjoy a sustained run, fueled by the powerful publicity from this massive televised event. Now back to you in the studio. In economic news today, the ongoing military conflict with Hamas has led Moody's Investors Service to downgrade Israel's credit rating, emphasizing the economic strain and geopolitical implications of the prolonged war.
That's right, Ruth. Moody's dropped Israel's credit rating from A1 to A2 last Friday, highlighting the financial toll of the war, which has resulted in immense human casualties and heightened geopolitical tensions. According to Moody's, this decision partially stems from the perception that the drawn-out conflict with Hamas is not only politically risky for Israel, but it also undermines the strength of its executive, legislative institutions, and fiscal stability for an indeterminable period.
And how does this impact Israel's borrowing power, Greg?
An A2 rating, while still considered investment grade, would likely escalate Israel's borrowing costs. This development comes after Moody's cautioned, less than 2 weeks after Hamas' deadly attack on Israel in early October, that the country's credit rating was perilously close to a downgrade.
There have been warnings about increased budget deficit due to military spending.
Definitely, Ruth. Amidst higher projected budget deficits due to elevated military expenditure, Moody's forecasts that by 2024, Israel's defense spending will almost double its 2022 levels and possibly spiral even higher in future years. The uncertainty regarding a potential ceasefire agreement and additional humanitarian aid for Gaza further complicates the situation.
Thanks for that comprehensive explanation, Greg. It seems the agency also mentioned other significant risks that lie ahead.
Absolutely, Ruth. Another significant hazard is the escalation of the active conflict, potentially involving Lebanon-based Islamist organization Hezbollah. Moody's points out that a conflict with Hezbollah, with its vast paramilitary resources to Israel's north, would pose a much more significant threat to Israel's territorial security.
Welcome to Soundly Human News. This Sunday, millions will tune into the Super Bowl, but their eyes won't just be on the game itself. Many will have their money on the line as well, with America wagering billions on the much-anticipated sports event. Ever since the Supreme Court granted states the liberty to legalize sports gambling in 2018, the number of potential bets have soared, ranging from standard point spread bets to more unpredicted ones. They cover everything from who scores the first touchdown to the color of Gatorade that will be poured on the victorious coach. This surge in betting interest has changed the way games are viewed. Casual fans may be bowled over by ads for sports betting sites and apps. Besides the game well loved by millions, new bettors can engage with more creative bets, like how long a famed singer might take to sing the national anthem. The availability of online sportsbooks, some legal and some not, offer hundreds of betting options. While most are centered around the game, they extend to the unrelated as well, such as how many songs a halftime show performer will sing, or which celebrity supporter will appear first in an ad. The surge in sports betting is now apparent even in the entertainment industry. Ads for sports betting sites like DraftKings and FanDuel are appearing frequently, endorsed by actors and sports figures alike, indicating how deeply sports betting is ingrained in the industry. From prediction scores in the 1970s to the betting technology of 2024, sports betting has only become more influential. But it's not solely a game of chance. Avid sports fans see betting as an information game, where studying team plays and individual athlete stats can provide an edge over the competition. Sunday's Super Bowl viewers will not only watch the field for the thrill of the game, but also for the potential dividends of their bets. However, this rise in sports betting does produce a question. Is the sports industry now promoting a potentially harmful hobby to its fans? For the moment, it's too early to tell. But as we keep a keen eye on our teams this Super Bowl, perhaps it should also be on the lookout for the effect